Chapter 1583. Hia. In an open space at the edge of the vampire's castle, Pest, who was wearing a black and white spotted dress, let out a delicate shout. Black wind was unceasingly swirling around her body. Like a tornado, she soared into the sky. That won't do. What you are doing is purely increasing your power. Seeing the situation before her, Athena coldly berated Pest. What you need to increase is not your power. Instead, you need to increase the depth of your power. Focus your attention and control your power so that you can increase the deeper level of your power. Control my power, increase the deeper level of my power. Pest muttered. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. Following Pest's concentration, the black wind that soared into the sky gradually grew smaller. It was no longer as berserk as before. Instead, it was like a pitch-black whirlwind. With Pest as the center, it began to rotate like a sphere. The size of the black wind gradually decreased. However, the color of the black wind blowing around Pest grew deeper and deeper. Seeing the color of the black wind blowing around Pest becoming darker and darker, Letitia's pretty face gradually turned serious. She exclaimed in astonishment. "That's right. That's right." Letitia, who was beside Athena, had a solemn expression on her face. With a surprised expression, she said, "Undoubtedly, her power has weakened. Why do I feel that this situation has become even more dangerous?" "Yes." Black Rabbit also spoke in a surprised manner. Black Rabbit also feels that even though Miss Pest's power has weakened, it has become even more threatening. "Is that so?" Fei Niao had a puzzled expression. "Why am I unable to sense anything?" "What everyone said is true." Yao stared closely at Pest, who was enveloped by the black winds, and said softly. "The current Pest is much more powerful than the previous Pest." Hearing those words, Fei Niao could only nod her head in confusion. It would appear that Fei Niao truly did not sense anything. That was understandable. To begin with, Fei Niao and Yao were two completely different types of people. Fei Niao's light of might was capable of bestowing upon its target a simulated divine spark, increasing its power to the maximum by several times, or even several tens of times. However, this grace was only effective on other things. Fei Niao herself was still an ordinary person. Only with enough grace would the flying bird be able to display a powerful combat strength. On the other hand, Yao's life catalogue allowed him to obtain the talents and gifts of beasts. Due to this, Yao's hearing might be slightly weaker than the Black Rabbit's, but his five senses were extremely sharp. He was able to detect the current threat from Pest. "It's only been 2 days of special training, and you've already achieved such results?" Letitia was happy for her colleague's growth. If she continues to grow at this speed, Pest might really be able to reach 4 digits before Az Dakaha breaks out of his seal. When the time comes, we'll have another powerful combatant on our side. Black Rabbit also said happily. "That's great." As expected of the former Demon King, Fei Niao sighed and said with some annoyance. "Since the effect is so good, why don't I ask Palace to help me train as well?" Hearing Fei Niao's words, Yao didn't say anything. He just reached out his hand and held the round wooden sculpture hanging around his neck. "If I can make more friends, can I also become that strong?" Athena acted as if she didn't hear their conversation. Actually, this former goddess had already discovered the uniqueness of these girls after observing them for the past 2 days. First was Letitia. Ever since this vampire concubine retrieved her divinity and completed her gift, her strength had returned to the peak state when she was a demon king. Her strength had reached 4 digits in one fell swoop, and she was probably even stronger than 16 knights. In Athena's opinion, Letitia was not at all weaker than her former self. Furthermore, not only was Letitia powerful herself, but she also possessed the specially made 25th sun. Once she used that, not to mention Athena, even the great sage equaling heaven who was supported by the ancient covenant would not be a match for Letitia. As for Black Rabbit, although her strength was slightly weaker than Letitia, she was still at 5 digits. She possessed the gift of a weapon that simulated a divinity. Apart from a god like Pest, it would not be easy to find a match for Black Rabbit among the 5 digits. For a mere god's descendant to be able to reach such a level, it was enough to show how powerful Black Rabbit was. After all, even the god slayers were only in the 4 to 5 digits. For the Black Rabbit to be able to occupy a place in the 5 digits, it was much stronger than the mythological beasts and subordinate gods in the world of the god slayers. As for Fei Niao and Yao, with their current strength, they were completely unable to enter Athena's view. However, as the former goddess of wisdom, Athena's wisdom eyes had long seen through them. Although these 2 girls were weak at the moment, they had great potential. Their potential was naturally nothing compared to Noah, who possessed nearly limitless possibilities. However, it wasn't that Fei Niao and Yao were too weak. Rather, it was that Noah was too much of a cheat. At the very least, Athena felt that regardless of whether it was Fei Niao or Yao, once they grew up, their future accomplishments would definitely surpass Letitia's. Undoubtedly, they aren't gods. However, these girls possess potential and battle prowess surpassing that of gods. This box is indeed an inconceivable place. Just as Athena was thinking this, a throbbing feeling suddenly emerged from the depths of her heart, causing her eyes to narrow. She raised her head and looked in the direction of the throne hall. Athena's abnormal behavior immediately attracted the attention of all the girls present. "Miss Pallas?" Black Rabbit asked. "What's wrong?" Athena didn't reply. Instead, she continued to look in the direction of the throne hall. After a long while, she spoke in a deep voice. "It seems that this concubine's little master has encountered some trouble. Thus, this concubine will stop here for today. This concubine will return first." After saying this, Athena's body flashed with a platinum light and transformed into a platinum longsword. She suddenly shot out, piercing through the air. Only then did the group of young girls react. Letitia leaped up without any hesitation. The shadows behind her converged into a pair of shadow wings. Carrying Letitia, she also soared through the air. "What's wrong?" Pest noticed that something was amiss. She hurriedly dispersed the black wind around her and ran over. "What happened?" Black Rabbit doesn't know either. Black Rabbit said in a somewhat flustered manner. However, according to Miss Pallas, it seems that something has happened to Mr. Noah. "Something has happened to Master?" Pest was startled. She glared at Black Rabbit. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" After saying that, Pest turned around and transformed into a burst of black wind. She shot toward the horizon and flew in the direction of the throne hall. Only Black Rabbit, Fei Niao, and Yao remained. They looked at each other in dismay. "What are you still standing there for?" Fei Niao shouted. "Chase after her." Only then did Black Rabbit and Yao react. One directly leaped high into the air, while the other picked up Fei Niao and created a whirlwind. In the blink of an eye, all the people in the open space disappeared without a trace. Bang! In the throne hall, the door to a room was violently pushed open by a group of girls. A loud and clear sound rang out. In the room, Noah was sitting on the edge of the bed. As for Athena, she had arrived before him. Together with Aster, they were standing on either side of Noah. Both of them were looking at the door. Seeing the group of girls pushing open the door in a panic, Noah said in a speechless manner, "What are you all doing?" Seeing Noah sitting there perfectly fine, the group of girls who thought that something had happened to Noah were immediately confused. "Noah?" Yao asked in a probing manner. "Are you all right?" Hearing those words, Noah rolled his eyes. "What could possibly happen to me?" "But, Miss Pallas undoubtedly said that something had happened to Mr. Noah," Black Rabbit said in confusion. "That is why we rushed over in such a hurry." "This humble one did not say that something had happened to him," Athena refuted. "This humble one merely said that he had encountered a bit of trouble." "Trouble?" Pest immediately looked at Black Rabbit with an unfriendly expression. "Then, why did you say that something had happened to him?" Black Rabbit shrunk his neck back. I merely thought that since Miss Pallas and Lady Letitia were so flustered, Something must have happened. Fei Niao and Yao immediately grabbed Black Rabbit's ears angrily. It's you, Rabbit, ruining things again. You must be punished. No. Don't. Black Rabbit screamed miserably. Chapter 1584. While Black Rabbit, Flying Bird, and Yao were messing around, Letitia and Pest walked up to Noah at the same time. Master, Letitia asked with concern. Are you really all right? Is there some trouble that you can't solve? Pest also looked at Noah. Do you need our help? No, it's just some minor trouble. You all don't have to worry about it, Noah shook his head. Compared to my matter, Pest, it is more important for you to focus on improving yourself. I know, Pest frowned slightly and said helplessly. At any rate, I won't be a burden to you. I never said that you would be a burden to me, Noah said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. It's just that the current situation is a bit chaotic. One moment, it's AZ Dakaha. The next moment, it's a sky full of gods. Who knows what will happen next? At a time like this, you have an opportunity to improve yourself. You should do your best to grasp it. That way, you'll be able to deal with things better in the future. What Master says is correct, Letitia nodded in agreement. Pest, you should focus on improving yourself. That way, you'll be able to help Master the most. Pest naturally understood what was going on. She could only nod her head. Noah then looked at Fei Niao and Yao, who had been grabbing Black Rabbit's ears, causing Black Rabbit to cry out in pain. Enough, enough. You all can leave. There is no benefit in gathering here. Go and do your own things. Right after Noah finished saying those words, Letitia and Pest spoke in unison. Is there no problem? What problem could there be? Noah shrugged. It's not like you all don't know about my ability. That's right. Black Rabbit immediately broke free from Flying Bird and Yao's demonic hands. With teary eyes, he covered his ears as he spoke. Even 1,000,000 gods are no match for Mr. Noah. There is no need for us to worry about him. The group of girls looked at each other before nodding their heads. Then, Pest turned her gaze to Athena. Today's training, just follow the same rhythm as before, Athena said in an unquestionable tone. I'll check on your progress tomorrow. I understand. A hint of nervousness appeared on Pest's beautiful face. It would appear that after 2 days of interaction, Athena's impression of her as a teacher had been deeply engraved in Pest's heart. This caused Pest to feel a trace of reverence toward Athena's words and deeds. After that, the group of girls greeted Noah and left Noah's room noisily. After the group of girls left, the casual expression on Noah's face gradually disappeared and was replaced by a heavy expression. Master. Aster finally opened his mouth. Are you really okay? As someone who had been by Noah's side all this while, Aster also didn't know what had happened. Aster only knew that Noah was using the 24 sovereignty of the suns to draw out the possibility of his body. Midway, an accident suddenly occurred. Then, when Noah opened his eyes, his entire body was drenched in cold sweat. It was as if he had experienced an unimaginable nightmare and seen something unreasonable. Thus, Aster didn't know what had happened. Athena also didn't know what had happened. However, she seemed to be able to see through Noah's heart. Her bewitching snake eyes turned toward Noah. Did something unexpected happen? Athena was more or less able to guess what had happened. After all, Athena knew that Noah was preparing to obtain the remaining 8 sovereignty of the suns today. He was going to gather all of the sovereignty of the suns in one go to draw out the possibility of his body. From the looks of it, Noah should have successfully gathered all of the sovereignty of the suns and attempted to draw them out. However, something unexpected happened midway and caused Noah to become like this. Athena had never seen Noah's expression so heavy before. Moreover, it was not only heaviness, but also confusion, panic, and even fear. This kind of Noah, let alone after knowing him, even in Noah's lifetime memory, Athena had never seen it before. In the end, what happened? I don't know how to explain it to you. Noah laughed bitterly. After all, I also don't understand what happened. What was the crimson space above the between worlds? What were those red shadows that looked like the Grim Reaper? Also, what exactly was that extremely terrifying pair of eyes that caused Noah's mind to explode with a bang? Noah didn't know any of these. Noah only knew that it was definitely not a dream. When he was young, Noah often dreamt of himself looking at the sky full of feathers in the between worlds. In the end, it was not just a dream, but a revelation that was connected to Noah's destiny. Since the first time he entered the between worlds, Noah had never had that kind of dream again. Now, suddenly dreaming of the between worlds, and the inexplicable crimson space above the between worlds, Noah absolutely could not treat it as a pure dream. If it was just a dream, it would definitely not make Noah's heart palpitate to this extent. Could it be? Noah murmured with a gloomy face. That is the culprit that caused the chaos in the between worlds, and destroyed the worlds? Noah's muttering made Athena faintly guess something, but she did not ask much. Now, what Noah needed was not questioning, but time. When Noah recovered, Athena would know what happened. Then, Athena changed the topic and asked about another matter. You have tried to use the 24 Sun's sovereignty to draw out the possibility of the body, right? Did you fail? Athena's words made Noah more or less wake up. Because of the unexpected things, Noah forgot about this matter. Even forgetting such an important thing, one could imagine how much of an impact the image had on Noah. So, Noah calmed down a little, closed his eyes, felt the condition of his body, and shook his head. It did fail. Why? Athena pondered for a while, then asked. Because of an accident? Or the same reason as last time? It should be the same reason as last time. Noah answered truthfully. Although the 24 Sun sovereigns managed to draw out a sliver of the possibility that was hidden deep within my body, it immediately broke off due to the heavy burden. And the trace of possibility that was drawn out, before it returned to the deepest part of Noah's body, Noah saw the image. It seems that Noah's plan to explore all the possibilities in his body finally allowed him to begin to touch the most real part of his destiny. Suddenly, the scene of when he saw the eye appeared in Noah's mind again. Athena, who didn't know what Noah was thinking, frowned deeper and deeper, and finally sighed helplessly. Even the entire Sun's sovereignty couldn't draw out all the possibilities in you. My fated enemy, what kind of existence are you? What kind of existence? Noah clenched his fist and said self-deprecatingly. I also want to know what kind of existence I am. Hearing this, Athena closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, her seductive eyes looked directly at Noah. Since even the power of the Sun's sovereignty couldn't draw out all the possibilities in your body, then the path of drawing out the possibilities may be lost. In other words, the use of the Sun's sovereignty to draw out the potential has to be abandoned? Noah suddenly frowned and couldn't help but ask. Could it be that the method isn't the most suitable one? Not suitable? Athena raised her eyebrows. Are you doubting my wisdom? No, of course not. Noah quickly shook his head. I'm just thinking that maybe it's because I'm too special, so some other factors are needed. Maybe that's part of the reason. Athena's expression softened. If that's the case, then give me a little more time to think about it. Noah could only nod. At this time, Noah felt his hand being held. It's okay, Master. Aster tightly held Noah's hand and stared at Noah without blinking. No matter what, I'll be by Master's side. Noah was slightly taken aback, then suddenly smiled, reached out his hand, and patted Aster's head. Then I'll leave it to you. Aster nodded heavily. Just like that, Noah's upgrade plan ended in failure. Chapter 1585. Unknowingly, a month had passed quietly. During this month, nothing special happened. No, rather than saying that nothing special happened, it would be more accurate to say that nothing particularly big happened. Due to the arrival of Noah, many things were resolved, but it also caused many other things. For example, the annihilation of Maxwell and the three-headed dragon's clones was a matter that had been resolved. Thanks to this, not only did everyone no longer have to worry about the three-headed dragon's clones spreading to every corner of the box court, bringing a serious disaster to the lower levels of the box court, they did not even have to worry about the Demon King Alliance interfering. After all, the people of the Demon King Alliance, in fact, except for Galgi, Bel, Glea, and Aurora, were all pawns of the God group. Now, Maxwell of the third perpetual motion organ had been eliminated, Galgi and his group had raised the flag of rebellion, and the God group had been attacked by Noah. The Demon King Alliance suddenly seemed to have disappeared without a trace and never appeared again. As for the many God group in the heaven realm, perhaps they were really afraid of Noah and did not dare to act rashly. In the eyes of the God group, Noah had long been a threat that was no less than the final trial of humans. Firstly, Noah had another cosmology called illusory star Taisway. Those gods and star spirits who were the strongest species, whether in 2 or 3 digits, had no chance of winning against Noah. Secondly, Noah had gathered all 24 sun sovereigns, which was something that even White Yiksha and Queen of All Saints had not done. The God group could not help but be on guard against the threat of so many sun sovereigns. Thirdly, Noah himself also had a high level of fighting power, and his strength was enough to reach 3 digits. He could even match Queen of All Saints, who could reach 2 digits in strength. With so many trump cards, in the entire box court, who could take down Noah? Just like how to deal with Az Dakaha could only be carried out by humans. If they wanted to deal with Noah, they had to be a god spirit or a star spirit. Apart from the pure-blooded dragons, who were also one of the 3 strongest species, the rest of the characters were at most in the 3 digits like the great sage equaling heaven. In the end, even if such an existence did not face the threat of being unconditionally sealed, under Noah's another cosmology, their spiritual lattice would still be reduced by half. Their strength would be greatly reduced, and it was possible that they would be reduced to 4 digits, or even 5 digits. No matter how many enemies of this level came, they would just be delivering food to Noah. Back then, the gods and Buddhas that Noah had sealed after the most powerful species proved that point. In addition to the sovereignty of all 24 suns, the gods no longer dared to openly target Noah. Thus, for the past month, Noah's life had been relatively peaceful. Noah knew that the gods had not given up on the sovereignty of the suns that he possessed. Unless the gods had given up on creating a new faction. Therefore, the gods were definitely still eyeing Noah covetously, waiting for an opportunity to appear. Without the interference of the gods and the Demon King Alliance, and the 3 demonic dragons' clones had all been dealt with, this period of time was naturally rather peaceful. The only thing that wasn't calm was Az Dakaha's seal. According to the reports that Sarah and Shadora had received, recently, there had been frequent earthquakes on the ground. For this reason, they had sent people to investigate. The result was that the people from Thousand Eyes had sent a message from White Yiksha. Az Dakaha's seal will be broken in the near future. We must be prepared for battle. This was the message that White Yiksha had sent. Thus, the peace that had lasted for a month was finally about to be broken. The atmosphere in the entire vampire castle gradually became tense. No matter which community it was, they were all prepared for battle. Including No Name. Wang. In the empty space at the edge of the vampire castle, Pest slowly opened her hand, causing a black wind to gradually appear. With her as the center, the black wind began to rotate. Compared to a month ago, the color of the black wind was extremely different. Just like that, the pitch-black wind of death revolved around Pest. Under Pest's control, the wind of death would swirl around her like a tornado, then a whirlwind, then a violent storm, and then a gentle breeze. Her control of the wind of death had reached perfection. At the same time, the aura on Pest's body was also extremely different from before. A month ago, the aura of this death god of the Black Death gave people the feeling that it was like a shadow. It was erratic and rather oppressive. Now, the aura that Pest gave people was like that of a true death god. It was ominous and filled with a sense of danger. It was somewhat similar to the aura of Athena. Seeing Pest skillfully controlling the pitch-black wind, all of the members of No Name, with the exception of Ren, were mesmerized by the scene before them. Floating in the pitch-black wind, the scene of a petite young girl wearing a black and white spotted dress fluttering in the wind was ominous. However, it did not hinder her beauty. Pest possessed an extremely delicate and adorable appearance to begin with. When combined with that beautiful scene, it was not strange for one to be mesmerized by her. Looking in Pest's direction, Noah's superb perception ability clearly reflected Pest's aura that was clearly different from a month ago. Seeing this, Noah couldn't help but smile. With this, we have another 4-digit battle power on our side. That's right. After a month of tempering by Athena, Pest's strength had increased by leaps and bounds. Her strength had finally increased to a 4-digit battle power. She managed to increase a 5-digit battle power to a 4-digit battle power in a single month? Letitia looked at Athena with a gaze of admiration. Pallas, you are truly amazing. Although this concubine contributed to a certain degree, it was all because that girl had yet to develop her own strength, Athena replied in a disapproving manner. That girl was hastily pushed to the position of the death god and hastily launched an attack with the identity of the demon king. After she was defeated, she directly became someone else's subordinate. There was simply no opportunity for her to develop her own strength. This concubine merely guided the strength that she should have obtained. Is that so? Fei Niao nodded in realization. In other words, Pest will not be able to increase her strength by such a large margin like she did now, right? Unless there is some sort of opportunity, Athena nodded and said. Otherwise, her current strength will likely be the limit of that girl's current strength. That's still very amazing, Yao was unable to refrain himself from speaking. After all, even Letitia is only a 4-digit battle power. Yes. Black Rabbit nodded repeatedly. 3-digit battle power and above belong to the celestial realm. It is the residence of the various deities. Without going through the Regalian heaven, one cannot descend to the lower realms. Thus, 4-digit battle power is the actual peak of the box court. Those that can reach 4-digit battle power can be considered experts of the box court. Well, experts are definitely experts. Merely, there is still a difference between 4-digit battle power and experts. Noah spread his hands. Although the current Pest has already reached 4-digit battle power, she is still slightly weaker than Letitia. Regardless of whether it is Letitia or Pest, they are still some distance away from reaching the peak of 4-digit battle power. It is still very early. What Master said is correct, Letitia agreed greatly. There are also some experts that are stronger than me among the 4-digit battle power. In the past, when I was the ruler of the entire hierarchy, I encountered several 4-digit battle power existences that were much stronger than me. Right after those words left his mouth, a voice interrupted. But, you still have the Sun Sovereign, Pest slowly walked over and said in an indifferent manner. If I were to use the Sun Sovereign of Ophiuchus constellation and transform into the enormous dragon from before, there would definitely be no one among the 4-digit battle power existences that could match Letitia, right? Everyone immediately nodded in agreement, causing Letitia to suddenly smile. I only possess a single Sun Sovereign. I am not like Master, who has already gathered all 24 Sun Sovereigns and accomplished something that even the White Knight King and Halloween Queen were unable to do, becoming a true peak existence in the box court. Those words caused the gazes of everyone present to converge on Noah. Facing the gazes of everyone present, Noah bitterly smiled in his heart. He was unable to voice out his bitterness. Chapter 1586. After a month, the fact that Noah had gathered all the Sun Sovereigns was no longer a secret. Not only the group of No Name, but even Sarah, Shadora, Vera, and the others knew about this. It was not that Noah wanted to show off, but the fact that Noah had gathered all the Sun Sovereigns was known by all the gods in the heavens. Even the communities under the gods knew about this. In this way, how could this matter be hidden? Therefore, almost everyone in the box court already knew that the human named Noah Dole had not only sealed millions of gods, including many of the strongest species in the 3 digits, but also obtained the Sun Sovereigns from the White Yiksha and the Queen of Halloween, gathering all the Sun Sovereigns. With another cosmology, that was more than 3 digits above the box court, and with all the Sun Sovereigns, now, the people in the box court began to spread that Noah, a human, had the ability to stand at the top of the box court. However, who knew that Noah was a member of the family and knew about his own matters? Noah's, another cosmology, he could use it like it was his own arm. However, as for the Sun Sovereigns, Noah was still unable to use it to draw out the terrifying possibility in his body and become a supreme existence. Of course, with Noah's current strength, it was not difficult to stand at the top of the box court. However, knowing that he still had a huge opportunity to improve, but could not successfully implement it, how could Noah not feel bitter? Although, Athena also said that even the 24 Sun Sovereigns could not draw out the possibility in Noah's body, it proved that the possibility in his body was extremely terrifying, and Noah should be happy. Therefore, this matter, Noah was half happy and half worried, and troubled for an entire month. Noah even wondered if he could rely on Letitia's 25th Sun Sovereign to complete his plan. Unfortunately, the Sun Sovereign of Ophiuchus was not the orthodox Sun Sovereign, but a special Sun Sovereign that was specially made to reward Letitia for becoming a full authority ruler. This Sun Sovereign could only be used by Letitia. Letitia had once said that the knights of the box court who guarded the order of the box court could also be used by the vampires. Other than the vampires, no one else would be able to use the sun even if they obtained it. It was the Sun Sovereign that was tailor-made for Letitia. Even if it possessed some of the magical effects of Sun Sovereignty, it could not be counted as true Sun Sovereignty. The proof was that Letitia could only use the Sun Sovereignty and transform into a pure-blooded dragon species. However, she did not receive any enhancements corresponding to the inheritance, nor did she have the ability to summon a star beast. In fact, she did not even have the many wonderful uses that the Sun Sovereignty should have. This Sun Sovereignty could not even be used by individuals who needed Sun Sovereignty to complete their spiritual lattice. In view of this, from all aspects, the Ophiuchus constellation's Sun Sovereignty was useless to Noah. Only Letitia could use it. When No Name was destroyed by the Demon King Alliance and Letitia was captured by the Demon King Alliance, the Demon King Alliance, who had always been pursuing the sovereignty of the sun, only took away Letitia's godhead and did not have any ideas about the sovereignty of the sun. This was also one of the reasons why the Demon King Alliance, who had always been pursuing the sovereignty of the sun, only took away Letitia's godhead and did not have any ideas about the sovereignty of the sun. In any case, gathering all the Sun Sovereigns was a good thing. Although Noah did not achieve his goal, it could not be said that he was unhappy. Thinking of this, Noah secretly felt helpless in his heart and scratched his head. Even if you praise me so much, I still have opponents that I can't defeat. Noah's words made the group of girls present go silent. What's wrong? Fei Miao asked Noah. You still haven't solved the puzzle of Az Dakaja's final trial as a human? No. Noah sighed. Otherwise, that lizard wouldn't be a thorn in my heart. Really? Yao Du was a little surprised. Not even a little progress? There is still progress. Noah corrected. It's just that the key part has not been solved. In this month, other than drawing out possibilities, Noah spent the rest of his time solving the puzzle of Az Dakaja's final trial as a human. With the help of Athena, the goddess of wisdom, Noah successfully solved most of the puzzles according to the hints given by Maiden Shirtian. However, Noah could not find a clue about the most central part. Not to mention Noah, even Athena could not solve it. Even the gods of the heavens had pondered over this puzzle for thousands of years. How could Noah and Athena be able to solve it so easily in a month's time? It's just the most crucial part. Noah's tone was a little irritated. It's the most crucial part that I can't find a clue about. There was not much time left until Az Dakaja broke the seal. If he could not solve the puzzle of the human's final trial, then, when the time came, Noah would still be unable to defeat Az Dakaja. Could it be that he could only seal Az Dakaja like the gods of the heavens and the great alliance of the former rulers of the hierarchy? Just as Noah had this thought, not far away, Ren ran over in a flurry. As he ran, Ren shouted with great joy. Say. Everyone. Mr. 16th Knight has woken up. This sentence made everyone present stunned, then their faces lit up with joy. Vampire's Castle, Throne Hall, in the base of no name, in a ward. Was I unconscious for a whole month and a half? On the bed, 16th Knight scratched his head and said in a bad mood. Although it feels good to be alive, I didn't expect that so many interesting things would happen while I was unconscious. Who should I look for compensation? When the group of no name heard 16th Knight's words, they did not know whether to laugh or cry. Just like you said, it feels good to be alive. Noah crossed his arms in front of him and said to 16th Knight. You can't ask for more. 16th Knight, you should be glad that you woke up at the right time. Speaking of which, before I fought with that lizard, I heard that you sacrificed yourself heroically. I almost cried. 16th Knight's mouth curved into an unruly arc as a comrade who also survived. I really want to ask you, little brother, did you really fight with that guy alone and almost forced it into a desperate situation? When he said this, 16th Knight's expression was still as arrogant as before, but the seriousness and gravity in his tone was quite obvious. To be honest, ever since I was born, I have never met an opponent that I couldn't defeat with my fists. That guy was definitely the first. 16th Knight raised his hand and slowly clenched it into a fist. I still remember the first time I met that guy. I threw a punch at it, but the lizard didn't even take a step back. Instead, my fist was shattered. Everyone suddenly became silent. From then on, I knew that guy was different from the people I met before. 16th Knight turned his head and looked at Noah. Can you really defeat it? Under 16th Knight's gaze, Noah slowly closed his eyes. After a while, he suddenly opened them. Yes. Is that so? 16th Knight was silent for a while and then shrugged. As expected of little brother. I originally thought that you were at most at the same level as me. Now I know that the monster has been by my side for a long time. This doesn't sound like something you would say, 16th Knight. Noah could not help but say. What? After experiencing failure once, you've fallen into depression? Ha. 16th Knight looked at Noah in disbelief. Then, he started laughing loudly. Oi oi oi, little brother, you couldn't possibly be thinking that I'm the type of person who can't accept failure, right? Then, what is the truth? Noah said calmly. You who have never experienced failure before, are you able to calmly face this failure? The smile on 16th Knight's face gradually disappeared as he looked around. He saw that Black Rabbit, Fei Niao, Yao, Ren, Letitia and even Pest were all looking at 16th Knight with complicated gazes. 16th Knight clicked his tongue. He seemed to be extremely displeased with this situation. Then, he suddenly thought of something and laughed. Hey, little brother, let's fight. Chapter 1587. At the edge of the vampire castle. A gust of wind blew from high up in the sky, stirring up a cloud of dust that looked like a hazy mist. In the sandstorm, Noah and 16 Knights were facing each other with some distance between them. Not far away, the members of No Name all had different reactions when they saw this scene. Why did it turn out like this? Black Rabbit complained dejectedly. Undoubtedly, they are partners of the same community. Why did it turn out like this? You've already said this no less than 10 times, Black Rabbit, Fei Niao said impatiently, as if he had seen through everything. Even if they are partners of the same community, it is impossible for them to get along with each other peacefully. Even family members who are related by blood can hate each other, let alone partners. Something's not right, Yao shook his head and denied Flying Bird's words. Noah and 16 Knights did not have any conflict. That's right, Ren nodded. It's just that Mr. 16 Knights doesn't seem to be in a good state right now. That's why things have turned out this way. Losing to Aziz Dakaha without being able to retaliate should have some impact on 16th Knights, who has always relied on her extremely powerful innate talent to win every battle, right? Letitia stared at the arena in front of her. That's why Master agreed to 16 nights rash challenge. After all, even if that guy doesn't say anything, he must be worried about his partner, right? Pest also stared at the two people in the arena. My master is that kind of person. Then, what can I do for Mr. Noah and Mr. 16 Nights? Black Rabbit asked worriedly. I really can't think of anything. If you can't think of anything, then don't think about it, Letitia looked at Black Rabbit and advised earnestly. As a descendant of the Moon Rabbit clan who is willing to sacrifice for others, I can understand your spirit of wanting to contribute to others. However, overdoing it is not good. Black Rabbit, leave it to Master this time. That's right, Wren looked directly at Noah. I believe that Mr. Noah must have his own thoughts. Everyone nodded and didn't say anything more. They all looked at the field and waited for the result. Today, 16th Night wasn't wearing her usual student uniform. That was because the student uniform had been completely destroyed in the battle with Az Dakaha. Therefore, 16th Night was not wearing a student uniform, but an ordinary black t-shirt and jeans. She was wearing headphones as usual. After stretching his arms and clenching his fists, 16th Night nodded with satisfaction after confirming the condition of his body. Very good. My body's condition hasn't deteriorated, and my injuries have all healed. Now, I should be able to unleash my full strength without any worries, right? Under the healing grace, 16th Night's injuries from the battle with Aziz Dakaha had already fully recovered, but he still hadn't woken up. After a month and a half, 16th Night had fully recovered. This made 16th Night reveal his usual arrogant and unruly smile. If that's the case, I can have a good fight. You just woke up and you can't wait to find someone to fight. To be honest, I don't really agree with that. But thinking about it carefully, it's really your style. So, I can accept it. Noah raised his eyes and looked at 16th Night. Although I more or less guessed why you came to me, let me ask you a little. What's the meaning of challenging me at this time? It's extraordinary, 16th Night said with a matter-of-fact attitude. Little brother, in fact, at the beginning, I was very displeased with the fact that the rulers of the social classes gathered so many people to fight against the Demon King. Noah raised his eyebrows slightly, but didn't say anything. He quietly listened to 16th Night. In the beginning, when I heard that the opponent was a true Demon King, and not one of those Demon Kings who abused their authority, do you know how excited I was? 16th Night fiercely clenched his fist. After coming to the box court, I've always wanted to fight the Demon King and defeat him. This kind of thing really makes my blood boil. In fact, after trying it out, I also felt quite satisfied. During the Fire Dragon's birth festival, 16th Night gave Pest to Noah and didn't fight the Demon King. However, after that, 16th Night, Flying Bird, Dazzle, Black Rabbit and Wren received an invitation from the Dragon Horn Griffin Lion and went to the Southern District to participate in the Harvest Festival. At that time, the Demon King Alliance launched an all-out attack on the Eastern, Southern and Northern Districts. In the Southern District, I met the Demon King, and there were two of them. 16th Night laughed in high spirits. As for their names, they seem to be called Glea and Aurora, right? Oh. Noah was rather surprised. So you've met them? What? 16th Night was also surprised. Are they people you know? If it's only to the extent that I know them. Noah spread out his hands. Then, did they satisfy you? Ah, that was awesome, especially that griffin beast called Glea. I had a good fight with him. That battle was even more exciting than the battle I had with the third-rate demons led by the Spotted Lowly. 16th Night laughed out loud. So, little brother, can you imagine how excited I was when I heard that the Demon King of that level was actually just a fake in some sense and that Lizard was the real Demon King? At this point, 16th Night suddenly changed the topic. Under such circumstances, White Yiksha, Sarah and Shadora actually asked me to give up on a one-on-one battle with a serious face. They said that I definitely couldn't beat that guy and should work with others to gang up on him. I was really unhappy to the extreme. Noah couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Well, with 16th Night's personality, she would indeed be quite unhappy when encountering such a thing, right? However, I wasn't so unappreciative as to ignore everyone's opinions. Since White Yiksha, who returned the godhead, had to fight personally and even had to work with others, if I insisted on fighting alone, I wouldn't be stupid, but stupid. 16th Night glanced at Noah. Moreover, I later received news that something happened to you, little brother. Even if I was unhappy, I endured it. In other words, after receiving the news that something happened to Noah, 16th Night's attitude toward this matter changed. In the beginning, she simply wanted to challenge the Demon King, but now she had to bear the mission of crusading against the enemy who killed her companions. Even if it was me, I wouldn't be so stupid as to issue a pure challenge to someone who killed my companions. 16th Night looked straight at Noah. So, at that time, I decided. Little brother, if you really die in the hands of that guy, then your revenge will be taken by me. Noah fell silent. In the end, as you already know, I lost miserably, 16th Night said in a self-deprecating manner. If it was only a defeat in a challenge, although it would be equally unreconciled, I wouldn't go so far as to not admit it. But with the hatred of my companions, I was utterly defeated. Az Dakaha used absolute power to tell me that I didn't even have the right to avenge my companions. This was the reason why 16th Night was in a strange state after waking up. Although it couldn't be said that he was in a dispirited state, this was the first time this young man, who had always relied on high standards of strength to overcome difficulties, had been beaten black and blue all over when he did something with pure thoughts other than having fun on his mind. This way, even a person made of iron would be affected, right? Not to mention someone like 16th Night who had extreme confidence in himself. Noah had long guessed that 16th Night's self-confidence was damaged because he lost to Az Dakaha, causing his condition to become a little strange. But Noah didn't expect that the reason for 16th Night's setback was because of him. And then? Noah sighed. You challenged me as soon as you woke up. Was there a special reason? There must be a reason, 16th Night said bluntly. I wanted to complain to you about the consequences of going missing, and I also wanted to test my ability. Most importantly, I wanted to see how far I could go against an opponent on the same level as that lizard. 16th Night looked straight at Noah. I wanted to confirm this. Chapter 1588. At this moment, Noah could clearly feel the unswerving determination in 16th Night's words. To 16th Night, this battle was not a playful one either. He had always been extremely confident in his own abilities, so much so that he believed that there was no one stronger than him. This was the first time in his life that 16th Night felt unsatisfied with his own abilities. He did not believe in himself and did not want to admit it. Because of this, he felt somewhat lost. If it was an ordinary person, they would have long since fallen into a low ebb. However, 16th Night was not an ordinary person. Although this man possessed a high level of combat strength, he was still a smart person. He clearly understood what kind of situation he was in, which was why he was so anxious to prove his abilities and get rid of this unnecessary confusion. That's why, little bro, let me see what kind of power you have that could single-handedly face off against a human in the final trial. 16th Night raised his tightly clenched fist and stared at Noah. If you show mercy, I might not forgive you. 16th Night's words shocked the members of No Name, who were watching from the sidelines. Mr. 16th Night? Black Rabbit anxiously stood up. No matter what, this is too. Before Black Rabbit could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Letitia. Don't say any more, Black Rabbit. Letitia did not look at Black Rabbit. Instead, she looked straight at 16th Night and said, let them deal with it themselves. But. Black Rabbit anxiously paced around. I don't want to see companions from the same community mercilessly fight each other. Then let's properly experience it now. Pest's words poked at Black Rabbit's weak point. Perhaps, the same thing will happen in the future. Who knows? Black Rabbit held his breath and his rabbit ears drooped. Alright, Black Rabbit, don't worry so much, Flying Bird said as if she was both comforting and persuading. Those two are not enemies. Even if they are unavoidably injured, the most worrying thing will definitely not happen. Yes, Yao nodded. There's no need to worry. Let's just wait and see, Ren said as a conclusion. Now, we can only trust those two. This is what we should do as companions of the same community. Everyone fell into silence and didn't speak another word. On the other side, Noah also felt 16th Knight's determination. I understand, Noah said faintly. I'll show you what I'm capable of. His words ignited 16th Knight's passion. That couldn't be better. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire place suddenly fell silent. Bang! In the next moment, accompanied by the sound of the ground being cracked by a powerful force, 16 Knights turned into a rocket and shot in the direction of Noah with the speed of the third universe. In the blink of an eye, he flashed in front of Noah. Who? His tightly clenched fist carried a terrifying gust of wind, stirring up the atmosphere. With an unstoppable momentum, it was like an iron hammer that could break the earth, heavily smashing towards Noah's direction. Such momentum proved how much power 16th Knight had used in this punch. Without a doubt. At this moment, 16th Knight didn't have the slightest intention of showing mercy. Therefore, looking at the fist that was rapidly enlarging in his eyes, carrying a terrifying gust of wind, stirring up the atmosphere, and exploding the airflow, Noah softly chanted. All evildoers, be afraid of my power. Now, I will have the majesty of 10 mountains, the power of 100 rivers, and the strength of 1,000 giant dragons. The majestic me will raise the ferocious power to slay dragons. In the depths of Noah's heart, at the center of the cosmic sea, the outline of the stone plate connected to the 10 patterns turned and pointed in the direction of the Dragon Emperor. Bang! A burst of crimson air suddenly rose from Noah's body and turned into a crimson dragon shadow, covering Noah in it. Boost 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 boost. Voices rang out from the illusory treasures on the crimson dragon shadow's body. Immediately, the crimson dragon shadow's color increased sharply and became as red as blood. Under the cover of the crimson dragon shadow, Noah didn't move at all, as if he didn't want to dodge at all. This scene caused hesitation to appear in 16th Knight's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by sharpness. Whoosh! Amidst an even more berserk whistling sound, a fist that carried a terrifying power tore through space and heavily landed on the scarlet-red dragon's shadow. Boom! A deafening muffled sound rang out. A terrifying shockwave spread out with Noah and 16 Knights at the center. It was as if there was an explosion. Kacha, kacha, kacha. Wherever the shock wave passed, the ground seemed to have suffered an extremely heavy blow and cracked inch by inch, turning into pieces of rubble and collapsing downward. Boom! The collapsed ground exploded into a huge crater, and in the midst of the rumbling, it continued to expand to the surroundings. In an instant, it had expanded to a diameter of several hundred meters. The members of No Name, who originally thought that they had pulled away from 16th Knight and 16th Knight, saw the violent shock wave and witnessed the ground collapsing inch by inch, and were immediately shocked. Wait a minute. Could it be that we are the ones in the most danger now? Flying Bird, this joke is a bit too much. Yao, are Mr. Noah and Mr. 16th Knight both Mr. Big Idiots? Black Rabbit, is there a limit to my master and comrade? Letitia, master is fine, but that 16th Knight fellow, is he also a monster? Pest, in short, the situation isn't good, let's quickly escape. Run, the panicked members of No Name immediately hurriedly fled, and those who helped, hurriedly escaped the range of the shock wave. In the blink of an eye, they had slipped away without a trace. No, it wasn't that they had slipped away without a trace. Instead, they had all moved into the sky. Pest and Yao together created a black wind and a whirlwind, blowing everyone into the sky and stopping there. Letitia turned her own shadow into a mass of darkness, and like the pitch-black ground, it floated in the air, allowing everyone to land on it. Then, the group of people hurriedly lowered their heads and looked down. Paw, 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 paw. Amidst the crisp sounds, the ground was still being swept away by the shock wave, and it was cracking little by little. The entire vampire's castle was faintly trembling because of this attack. The violent shock wave mixed with the rocks and debris of different sizes, wreaking havoc in all directions. This scene made people think of a natural disaster. However, the natural disaster didn't last for too long. Not long after, the violent shockwave slowly came to a stop. The rubble that was mixed within the shockwave randomly smashed onto the ground, causing a muffled sound to reverberate in the air. A burst of dense sand and dust pervaded the air, covering the entire collapsed ground. Then, it was immediately swept away by a gust of wind, revealing the scene within the deep crater. After an instant, everyone finally saw the two figures confronting each other in the gradually dissipating sand and dust. The scene of the two figures caused everyone to involuntarily open their eyes wide. Noah was still standing in his original position, not moving in the slightest. His body was surging with scarlet waves of air, endlessly surging. As for 16th Knights, he maintained his posture of punching out with his head lowered, and his expression couldn't be seen at all. However, although 16th Knight's expression couldn't be seen, everyone could clearly see his hand that was placed on top of the surging scarlet waves of air. They saw that the hand that could split mountains, rivers, and seas was currently twisted into an inconceivable angle. His skin was broken, his bones were shattered, and his hand was dripping with blood. Woo-ah! 16th Knight's somewhat muffled cry rang out. It was just one punch. It was just one punch. Not only was Noah not injured in the slightest, he didn't even take a step back. On the contrary, 16th Knight's arm was directly broken, and his fist was directly smashed into pieces. That scene was exactly the same as what 16th Knights had previously mentioned. When he faced Az Dakaha and punched him, the result was exactly the same. At this moment, Noah slowly extended his hand and placed it on 16th Knight's shoulder. Now, do you know why Az Dakaha was forced into such a desperate situation by me? Chapter 1589. Now, do you know why Az Dakaha was forced into such a desperate situation by me? The extremely clear voice that entered 16th Knight's ears caused an intense ripple to appear in 16th Knight's lowered eyes. The intense emotions that reverberated in 16 Knight's heart made 16 Knights forget the pain of his broken arm and crushed fist. His expression suddenly became lax. He still remembered that when he had just faced Aziz Dakaha, 16th Knights had also rushed to the front of the three-headed demon dragon with an unstoppable momentum and punched out with a fist that could shatter mountains and rivers and split the sea. In the end, this punch completely shattered 16th Knight's fist. That was to be expected. Although Az Dakaha's body was only a few times larger than the average person, his body was compressed with the equivalent of a continent's mass. If there was no power that could shatter a continent, then it was impossible to shake Az Dakaha's body. 16 Knight's fist might be able to shatter mountains and rivers, or split the sea, but it was not to the extent of shattering a continent with a raise of his hand. Therefore, the result of this fist was already decided. Today, the same scene happened again. However, the target that 16 Knight's fist shattered was no longer the demon king Az Dakaha, but Noah, who was 16 Knight's companion. It was different from Az Dakaha. Although Noah had a LV6 ability value, under the buff of the basic ability, durability, and the sword protection, that could weaken physical attacks, he could withstand quite an astonishing amount of attacks. However, he could not reach Az Dakaha's level, and it was not because of his great quality. However, with the use of the Dragon Emperor avatar and the increased defensive power of the air scales, Noah was able to do the same thing as Aziz Dakaha. Noah said indifferently as he put his hand on 16 Knight's shoulder. Don't be affected by this. That's not your style. Thinking back carefully, didn't you come to the box because the outside world was too boring? 16th Knight's unfocused expression trembled slightly. It's not a bad thing that you have confidence in your ability. However, in the box, there are many people stronger than you. In terms of strength, that lizard is only in the 3 digits. There are also many people stronger than him in the box. Noah looked straight at 16 knights. It is precisely because the box has an endless number of people that this world can satisfy you. If the people in this world are weaker than you, then why did you come to this world? As he said that, Noah slowly tightened his hand on 16 knights' shoulder. Humans are creatures that can learn lessons and grow through training. You are no exception. So far, you have only relied on your powerful talent to fight. Your strength is innate. So, next, you only need to train yourself and become stronger. Isn't that enough? Following Noah's words, the crimson dragon's shadow on his body began to slowly dissipate. I hope you remember this. You are not someone who will stop here. You still have more room for development. Do you understand? Noah's words made 16 Knights' expression return to normal and he fell into silence. It wasn't just 16th Knight, even No Name's group who were looking down at the huge crater from the sky fell silent. After a while, 16 Knights raised his head and looked at Noah. I want to ask you a question. Noah did not answer and only nodded. Under such circumstances, 16th Knight asked this question. In the beginning, when we met, why didn't you use your current strength? When Noah first came to this world, he encountered 16 Knights, Flying Bird, Dazzle, and Black Rabbit. At that time, Noah and 16 Knights also fought. However, in that battle, both of them fell at the same time. At that time, Noah did not use his current strength at all. Otherwise, 16th Knight wouldn't have beaten Noah black and blue all over. What? You think I'm looking down on you? Noah shook his head and laughed. It's not like that. At that time, I just came to this box. For some reason, I was temporarily unable to use my true strength. Therefore, at that time, it was not that I did not want to use it, but that I could not use it. Is that so? 16 Knights' expression eased a lot. Such a powerful strength, it shouldn't be as simple as a gift, right? You're right. Noah hesitated for a moment and then answered truthfully. This strength is not the strength of the person who was given it, but the strength of the person who gave it, which is authority. Noah didn't know about this until some time after he came to this world. In the box, there was also the concept of authority. In the world of God Slayer, authority referred to the strength of a god. In the box, the so-called authority referred to the strength given to the person who gave it. The strength given by an Asura god was called a gift. As for the power of the Asura gods and Buddhas, that was authority. Gift was the strength given to the person who gave it. Authority was the strength of the person who gave it to the person who gave it to the person who gave it to the person. In terms of this concept, the magic that Noah learned from others, the magic that he was given, and even the ability value that he was given by Hestia, were all in the category of a gift. As for authority, Noah was not given it by others, but by usurping it from a god and fusing it with his own special constitution, completely turning it into his own strength. Through authority, Noah could also become the person who gave it to the person who gave it to him. For example, Noah could use the incarnation of Dragon Emperor to multiply the strength of others. For example, Noah could use the incarnation of Priest to bless others. Therefore, in this world, it was also in the category of authority. And without a doubt, although it was not all, authority was definitely stronger than most gifts. 16 Knights understood this point. That was why Noah said it so straightforwardly. So that's how it is. It's not a power given from the person who gave it to me, but a power that belongs to the person who gave it to me? 16th Knight finally felt relieved, as if he had put down something in his heart, and laughed arrogantly. I really want to defeat this power. Hearing 16 Knights' words, Noah knew what was going on. The old 16 Knights was back. So, Noah also laughed. You are welcome to challenge me again at any time. There will be a day sooner or later. 16 Knights grinned. So, don't be too arrogant. After saying that, 16 Knights' raised arm was twisted into a terrible state. It was dripping with blood, and even the fist was shattered. It hung down powerlessly. Noah raised his head almost subconsciously and caught the arm that was hanging down. With this, Noah's arm was stained with blood. At this moment, Noah's body suddenly throbbed. Noah's expression changed slightly, and then he quietly helped 16 knights up. He extended his hand and took out a bottle of potion from a sudden golden ripple and sprinkled it on 16 knights' arm. A soft green light began to flicker, and 16 knights' arm gradually recovered. Mr. Noah. Mr. 16 Knights. At this moment, Black Rabbit jumped down from the air and cried with tears in his eyes. It's great that both of you are fine. Hey, stupid rabbit, which eye of yours saw that I'm fine? 16 Knights raised his arm that was still recovering and protested. This is a standard serious injury. Is it? Fei Niao rode Yao's whirlwind and landed on the ground with everyone else. He smiled provocatively at 16 Knights. Then for 16 Knights, it shouldn't be a big injury, right? It can't be helped. Yao nodded in agreement. After all, 16 Knights is someone who managed to escape with his life from the human's final trial. If you want me to say it, then he deserved it. Pest spoke with disdain. Who allowed this guy to challenge my cheating master? Oh. 16 Knights raised his eyebrows and looked at Pest with a ridiculing expression. So, while I was unconscious, the arrogant spotted loli was finally subdued by little brother? As expected of 16 Knights, Letitia praised. You saw through it immediately. See through it, my ass. Pest was furious. That's not it. Everyone burst into laughter. Seeing his companions laughing together, Noah's eyes flickered. He secretly hid the blood on his hand. Chapter 1590. After returning to the throne hall, everyone held a small party to celebrate 16th Knight's successful awakening. Only when the sky turned dark did everyone disperse and return to their own rooms. Noah also bid farewell to Letitia and Pest and returned to his own room. As soon as Noah returned to the room, he closed the door and retrieved a handkerchief from his pocket. There was some blood on the handkerchief. It was 16th Knight's blood. Clang! Under a burst of platinum light, Athena's figure slowly appeared beside Noah. As soon as she appeared, Athena, like Noah, stared at the blood-stained handkerchief. Then, Athena said, "That human called 16th Knight seems to have something special about him." This was something that couldn't be any more obvious. When Noah was stained with 16th Knight's blood, the throbbing in his body was the evidence. But, what kind of reaction is that? Athena said with interest. Is that human called 16th Knight related to you in some way? No, 16th Knight is not related to me in any way. Noah stared at the bloodstains on the handkerchief in his hand and recalled the throbbing in his body at that time. He frowned slightly. That reaction doesn't seem to be a reaction of my own. Instead, it seems like some kind of existence in my body is reacting to 16th Knight's blood. Some kind of existence in your body? Athena pondered. The same thing had happened before. For example, in the world of Demon High School, when he met Hyodo Issei, Noah's Dragon Emperor avatar had a reaction to the Red Dragon Emperor in Hyodo Issei's body. Another example was in this world. In the beginning, Noah's White Horse avatar had a reaction to White Yiksha. When he encountered something that had a deep relationship with the authority of the 10 incarnations, or something that was simply similar, Noah's authority of the 10 incarnations could react. Noah believed that the reaction caused by 16th Knight's blood was the same as the reaction caused by the authority of the 10 incarnations. But this time, it's obvious that it's not my authority that's reacting. Noah's frown deepened. And other than authority, if I have any special powers, it would be the sovereignty of the sun and another cosmology. However, the power that reacted to 16th Knight's blood clearly did not belong to the sun. Otherwise, it was impossible for the 24 engravings of the sun to not react at all. Similarly, if the another cosmology produced a reaction, then Noah should be able to clearly detect it. In fact, Noah's ability was also a special power. However, the concept of ability value was unique to the world of looking for a chance encounter in the dungeon. In this world, it shouldn't have any reaction to other things. As for the remaining powers of magic and magic, they had never produced an automatic reaction before. Then, the power that reacted to 16th Knight's blood, did Noah still have it in his body? Just as Noah was thinking about this, Athena suddenly spoke. Isn't there? The new power that you just obtained recently. Recently? Noah was slightly startled, and then his heart skipped a beat. The spirit of the third perpetual motion machine? That's right. Athena nodded. That was originally the power of this world, so it's most likely to produce an inexplicable reaction here. But, why would the spirit of the third perpetual motion machine react to 16th Knight's blood? Noah asked doubtfully. Could it be that 16th Knights has something to do with the third perpetual motion machine? There's too little information at the moment, even I can't give a clear answer. Athena looked at Noah, a pair of bewitching snake-like eyes flickered with an inexplicable expression. But, that human called 16th Knights is indeed very special. That kind of extraordinary physical ability shouldn't be something that a human is born with. It seemed that even Athena was a little impressed by 16th Knight's extraordinary physical ability. Otherwise, this proud and arrogant goddess would not have said such words. The third perpetual motion machine? Noah stared at the blood on the handkerchief in his hand. If that's the case, maybe, 16th Knight's body is very likely to have the third perpetual motion machine. If that was the case, the third perpetual motion machine would produce energy out of nothing and be contained in 16th Knight's blood. That was why the third perpetual motion machine in Noah's body reacted to 16th Knight's blood. Because the third perpetual motion machine's spirit sensed the same source of energy. Oh. Athena was a little surprised. You mean that 16th Knights has the third perpetual motion machine in his body? It's just a guess. Noah said. I'm even thinking that 16th Knights might be the third perpetual motion machine. It's the third perpetual motion machine? Athena suddenly understood. In other words, the existence called 16th Knights is actually the experimental body of the third perpetual motion machine? I don't know. Noah shrugged. It's just a guess at best. But everything starts from a guess. Athena glanced at Noah. Your conjecture is very likely to be correct. Maybe? Noah sighed. It's just that I didn't expect that I would actually encounter the real third perpetual motion machine and its spirit, and even have one of them. Thinking of this, Noah suddenly thought of Maxwell. Speaking of which, Maxwell's demon is also an inseparable factor with the existence of the third perpetual motion machine. Noah said almost subconsciously. And as the imaginary demon of Maxwell's demon, that guy seems to have used the three-headed demonic dragon's army more than once, right? After hearing Noah's words, Athena slightly narrowed her eyes. Thinking about it carefully, I've discovered some strange things. What a coincidence, I've also discovered some strange things. Noah looked at Athena and smiled. I just don't know if we're thinking of the same thing. Are you testing this concubine's wisdom? My fated person? Athena said calmly. Then let me tell you. You and I are definitely thinking of the same thing. Well, because it's indeed very strange. Why haven't we noticed it until now? Noah's eyes flashed. Although he used space jump to transport the three-headed demonic dragon's body parts, that guy Maxwell didn't even suffer a single backlash from those body parts. Although AZ Dakaha's avatar wasn't without a shred of intelligence, it was definitely not an existence that would casually listen to the orders of others and work for others. If someone had any ideas about AZ Dakaha's body parts, the first thing they would face would definitely be the crazy retaliation of those body parts. However, not only did Maxwell control the two-headed dragon army without the slightest bit of disobedience, he also didn't suffer a single backlash from the two-headed dragon army. Don't you find this matter strange? Maxwell has the soul of the third perpetual motion machine. Noah muttered to himself. The two-headed dragon is the body part of the three-headed demonic dragon, AZ Dakaha. Hearing Noah's mutterings, Athena seemed to understand something. What? Athena asked. You think that the third perpetual motion machine is related to the three-headed demonic dragon? It's possible. Noah's lips slowly curled up. If that's really the case, then the third perpetual motion machine is very likely to be the final piece of the puzzle of the final trial that we've been searching for. Athena's eyes lit up and she chuckled. Although it's just some wild ideas, I can't say that there's no such possibility. Hearing this, Noah closed his eyes and a large amount of information flashed through his mind. Among them, there was the knowledge of the evil god, Az-Dakaha, and most of the puzzles of the final trial that Noah and Athena had researched over the past month. Now, the existence of the third perpetual motion machine just happened to fill in the last piece of information. Wang. In an instant, in the depths of Noah's mind, in the center of the cosmic sea, on the outline of the stone plate that was connected to the 10 patterns, one of the patterns flashed with a dazzling light. That was the incarnation of the warrior. Feeling this change, Noah was overjoyed and laughed out loud. The puzzle is finally solved. Chapter 1591. In the main hall of the throne hall, at the round table that was usually used for meetings, several key figures of the community were gathered here. No name. Salamandra. Dragon Horn Griffin Lion. Other than Thousand Eyes, who was still in charge of monitoring the situation at White Yiksha's side, the rest of the leaders of the community based in the throne hall were all present. It was not just the leaders. For example, all of No Name's members were gathered and lined up behind Ren, who was the leader. As for Salamandra's side, other than Shadora, Mandora, who was the advisor, was also present. Only Sarah, the only one present, was Dragonhorn Griffin Lion. In addition, the Queen's Knight, Faith Reese, was also present. Just like before, only Ren, Sarah, Shadora, and Faith Reese could be seated. However, everyone's eyes were not gathered on the 4 seated people, but on Noah, who was standing behind Ren. The reason for this was not because they were not used to Noah's strength and position, but because today's meeting was held at Noah's request. Therefore, everyone's eyes were gathered on Noah. Mr. Noah. Sarah said to Noah. You gathered us all here, is there something important you want to announce? Under everyone's gaze, Noah nodded. Then, Noah said something that would not stop until it shocked everyone. I think it's time to declare war on Az-Dakaha. That one sentence made everyone present stand up in shock. What? Sarah, Shadora, Mandora, and even Faith exclaimed. Mr. Noah? Ren also looked at Noah with great surprise, obviously not knowing about this. If even the leaders were like this, then there was no need to talk about the people in No Name. Brother? 16th Knight frowned, which was rare. Are you kidding me? Although the rest of the girls did not say anything, judging from their expressions, they definitely had the same feeling as 16th Knight. There was no other way. Noah's decision was too abrupt. Under such circumstances, it was Noah himself who was the calmest. I'm not joking. That lizard seal won't last much longer. Instead of waiting like this, why don't we just start a war? Hearing Noah's words, everyone looked at each other. That's true, but is it necessary to start a war now? Sarah raised her hand. Az-Dakaha's seal can still be maintained for a while. If we start fighting now, does Mr. Noah intend to release Az-Dakaha in advance? That's right. Noah nodded. There's no need to wait any longer. Noah's words confused the others. However, those who were more quick-witted immediately reacted. Your Excellency Noah, Fei Si said as she looked at Noah. Have you solved the riddle of absolute evil? Only then did everyone come to their senses and focus their gazes on Noah. Noah glanced at the crowd and smiled faintly. I solved the last part yesterday, so there's no more problem. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. That's great. Shadora even cheered. This way, we can defeat Az-Dakaha. Everyone else's faces were filled with joy and excitement. Everyone here knew this. If they wanted to defeat Azidakaha, they could not rely on brute force alone. If they could not solve the riddle of Azidakaha's final trial as a human, then no matter how many times they defeated the evil god, he would be able to revive. Because of this, the rulers of the social classes were troubled. As the day of Azidakaha's release approached, everyone who could not find an answer became more and more anxious. Now, Noah suddenly announced that the riddle had been solved. How could they not be happy and excited? So that's how it is. 16th Night was a little relieved, and he couldn't help but laugh. Because the riddle has been solved, is that why you say there's no need to continue waiting? Before Noah returned, everyone could only helplessly wait for Azidakaha's seal to expire. This was because they had no way of dealing with Azidakaha at that time. They could only try to stall for time and think of a solution. After Noah's return, at least on this side, they had the strength to face Azidakaha head-on. Then, the only thing left was to solve Azidakaha's riddle and meet the conditions to pass the final trial, so that Azidakaha could not be revived. In other words, everything was ready, except for the east wind. Now, the east wind had finally arrived. Since that was the case, there was no need to continue stalling. That was why Noah had gathered everyone early in the morning, preparing to set off to deal with Azidakaha. Over this period of time, all the clones left behind by Azidakaha before he was sealed have been annihilated. The Demon King Alliance has also disappeared without a trace. We have also completed all the necessary preparations. Furthermore, the mystery of the human's final trial has been solved. We have done everything we can. Noah made such a declaration in front of everyone present. It's time for that lizard's farce to come to an end. Wait. Mandora took a step forward and said with a serious expression. Even so, there's no need to take the initiative to release Azidakaha's seal, right? Yes, Ren agreed. Although we have prepared everything we can, and Mr. Noah has also solved the riddle of absolute evil, and met the conditions to clear the final trial of mankind, there is still time after all. Perhaps we can make more preparations? I think so too. Shadora seemed to have calmed down and expressed her opinion in a cute and young voice. Even if the riddle of absolute evil is solved, Azidakaha is still a demon king with 3 digits. No amount of preparation is enough to deal with such an existence. I agree too, Fei Si also said. If there's still time, then we should make good use of it. That would be a wise move. What? Do you think I'm so excited about solving the riddle that I can't wait to find trouble with that lizard? Noah smirked, his voice revealing a hint of indifference. Don't worry, as long as the riddle of the final trial is solved, then I can deal with Azidakaha alone. That indifferent tone made everyone feel an incredible sense of confidence. No, it was not right to say that he was confident. More accurately, it was a matter of course. From the beginning, Noah had already decided. Azidakaha would be dealt with by him alone. Therefore, now that the riddle had been solved, Noah did not need to wait any longer. Dealing with Azidakaha was a matter of course for Noah. I will settle the score with that lizard personally. Noah swept his gaze across everyone. If you trust me, then leave everything to me, Yizichin said. Everyone fell silent. After a while, Sarah finally spoke. Since Mr. Noah is confident in dealing with Azidakaha, then that's great. But I think it's better to wait a little longer. Wait a little longer? Noah frowned slightly. Is there a special reason? Just as Mr. Noah said, we have prepared everything that needs to be prepared. However, everyone is right. The more prepared we are, the more advantageous it is for us. Sarah smiled sweetly. Perhaps Mr. Noah can face Azidakaha head-on, or even kill him. But to defeat Azidakaha, besides solving the riddle, you also need to weaken his spiritual core and expose the weakness of his heart. When Sarah said this, Noah knew what this ruler of the hierarchy was worried about. Chapter 1592. If he wanted to kill Azdakaha, he would have to penetrate the 3 weak points on his body. His head. His shoulders. His heart. Azdakaha would only die if all 3 of his weaknesses were penetrated. Other than attacking these 3 weak points, no matter how he attacked Azdakaha, there was no way to kill him. From this, it could be seen how difficult it was to deal with Azdakaha. First of all, as a human in the final trial, only humans could kill Azdakaha. Secondly, even if he killed Azdakaha, if he did not solve the riddle of his spiritual core, this demon king would keep reviving. Lastly, he had to attack Azdakaha's 3 weak points before he could be killed. Without these conditions, there was no way to deal with this demon king. Furthermore, Azdakaha had Avesta's, another cosmology. No matter how many existences other than humans and the sect of fire came, Azdakaha would be able to obtain their powers. There was simply no way to deal with him. It was because of Azdakaha's transgression that the gods in the heavens were intimidated by the threat of this ancient demon king. They chose to abandon the box court and create a new one. In front of the final trial of humans, they escaped without a trace. It was also because the final trial of humans was such a terrifying existence that they were able to threaten the box court world where gods and Buddhas roamed the earth and divine beasts were as common as dogs. Now, Noah had all the conditions to defeat Azdakaha, but he also had to follow the rules of attacking the 3 weak points on his body to defeat him. 2 of the 3 weak points, the head and shoulders, had already been sealed by the War God Council and the League of Rulers. They had long been broken through, so there was no need to worry. As for the remaining weak point, the heart, he had to weaken Azdakaha's spiritual core to expose it. If you want to weaken Azdakaha's spiritual core, you have to make him bleed and split his body. That way, Azdakaha's spiritual core will be divided among the body parts and be weakened until his heart is exposed, Sarah said to Noah. If you don't do that, even Mr. Noah's, another cosmology, will not be able to weaken Azdakaha's spiritual core, right? Noah nodded and agreed with Sarah. It was true that Noah's another cosmology, in addition to being able to unconditionally seal the strongest species of gods and astrals, could also weaken the spirituality of all individuals except for the 2, reducing them to only half of their original spirituality. But it was useless against Azdakaha. This was because Azdakaha's, another cosmology, could imitate the cosmology of humans and the sect of fire. It could be used as a mirror to counteract the power of the imitated cosmology. Noah's illusory star Taisui was the another cosmology of the China gods. It was not an exception to being imitated. Therefore, if Noah used his another cosmology to weaken Azdakaha's spiritual core, Azdakaha would definitely use his another cosmology to counteract the power of the spiritual core. In that case, Noah's another cosmology would be useless against Azdakaha. In the end, Noah could only let Azdakaha bleed to weaken his spiritual core and expose the weakness of his heart. But in that case, the blood would turn into endless body parts. Moreover, they would be the first generation of deities. To Mr. Noah, they might just be easy targets to deal with, but to us, they are great enemies, Sarah said. With that in mind, it's best that we gather more high-end combat power to effectively deal with the body parts. I understand what you mean, Noah said after a moment of hesitation. But you don't have to deal with the body parts. I can handle them all at once. That's true, but to deal with the body parts means that Mr. Noah may be distracted. Under the threat of Azdakaha, it's not a good thing for Mr. Noah, Sarah said solemnly. Moreover, even if Mr. Noah can deal with all the body parts at once, it's hard to guarantee that he won't miss some of them. Even if he misses 1 or 2 of them, it's already a great threat. So, you want me to focus on dealing with Azdakaha, and leave the body parts to you, right? Noah was a little helpless. Well, I can't say that's wrong, but it's not that easy to gather the combat power to deal with the first-generation body parts, right? Now, almost all the communities that had the ability to be useful on the battlefield, except for those communities that belonged to the god groups in the heaven realm, had gathered. In this way, To gather the combat power of the first-generation deities that could deal with Az-Dakaha's body parts could not be considered in terms of quantity. They could only start with quality. In other words, the combat power that Sarah wanted to gather had to be at least at the level of deities. How could it be so easy to gather such combat power? Just as Noah was thinking about this, Shadora spoke. Actually, not long ago, we had already attempted to contact 2 4-digit demon kings to get them to assist us in the battle against Az-Dakaha. That one sentence made everyone in No Name greatly surprised. Demon kings? Black Rabbit, Flying Bird, Yao, Letitia, and Pest were all stunned. Ask the demon kings for help? Even 16th Knights was stunned for a moment. Then, he laughed out loud. The ruler of the hierarchy actually asked for help from the calamity of the box? This is really a very interesting matter brought up in an unexpected situation. Wasn't that right? As the ruler of the hierarchy that protected order, asking for help from the demon kings that destroyed order was something that even 16th Knights did not expect, right? Looking at this situation, Sarah and Shadora smiled bitterly. Everyone, don't misunderstand. We are not at the end of our rope to the point where we have to ask the demon kings for help, Sarah explained. Although those two are demon kings, they are not demon kings who abused their authority as organizers and fell. It's only because they once rebelled against the gods of the heaven realm that the gods of the heaven realm viewed them as enemies. In the end, the gods of the heaven realm branded them as demon kings. I'm sure you've heard about them, Shadora said to the crowd. An existence called the 7 Heavens Great Sage. 7 Heavens Great Sage? Ren, Letitia, and Pest all sucked in a breath of cold air. 7 Heavens Great Sage? Fei Niao and Yao, who had just arrived at the box not long ago, were confused. 7 Heavens Great Sage? 16th Knights raised his eyebrows. He seemed to have heard of this name before. 7 Heavens Great Sage? Noah's eyes suddenly lit up. 7 Heavens Great Sage. With the Great Sage equal to Heaven's son Wukong as the leader, there were many powerful demon kings who had once declared war on the heaven realm and destroyed the entire 3-digit hierarchy alliance. Now, Sarah and Shadora actually asked for help from the other demon kings of the 7 Heavens Great Sage. Fei Si immediately turned to Sarah and Shadora. Which 2 of the 7 great demon kings came? Hearing this, Shadora answered truthfully. The ones who came are the 3rd-ranked demon king, the great sage of the ocean cover, Demon King Jiao, and the 4th-ranked demon king, the great sage of the chaotic heavens, Demon King Rock. The ones who came are actually those 2. Black Rabbit was a little flustered. Wow! They're all famous demon kings. Noah directly asked. Then, where are the 2 demon kings now? Just as he finished speaking, a messenger came in from outside. Lord Sarah, Lord Shadora, the great sage of the ocean cover and the great sage of the chaotic heavens have come to visit. The timing couldn't be more coincidental. Chapter 1593. When Noah and his group came out of the main hall of the throne hall, 2 figures immediately entered everyone's eyes. It was a man and a woman standing side by side. On the left was a man wearing a luxurious Han Chinese robe. One of his eyes was covered with an eye patch. His figure was relatively slender, and the only eye that was exposed was like a man's. On the right was a young girl with long black hair. Her clothes were boldly open from her shoulders to her back. She had gorgeous decorations, but her appearance was somewhat young. A man and a woman like this stood outside the door of the throne hall. They seemed to be chatting about something. It wasn't until everyone came out of the throne hall that they stopped their discussion and cast their gazes over. In an instant, everyone's gazes met one after another. Regardless of how others felt, Noah looked at the man and woman and frowned slightly. It was not for any other reason, but because those 2 people made Noah feel a little strange. First of all, the young girl's entire body exuded a noble temperament, but her aura contained a scorching heat that could not be ignored. It felt like a ball of flame with the appearance of a young girl. With just a slight touch, it could be burned to ashes. However, that was not strange. Because this young girl did indeed have the ability to burn the entire vampire castle into nothingness in an instant. This young girl was the fourth-ranked rock demon king of the seven heavens, great sage, the highest divine bird in the heaven realm, the direct descendant of the great golden-winged rock Jialing. Great golden-winged rock. That was a divine bird that could rival the 12 heavens protectors. It was one of the 3 strongest species, possessing the highest level of grace for gods and dragons. That was a flame that could burn the soul into nothingness once it came into contact with an individual. Although the rock demon king named Jialing was not the strongest species, but a demigod, as a direct descendant of the great golden-winged rock, she was also the princess of the golden-winged bird clan. She had the strongest firepower among the 7 great demon kings. At least, when he felt the scorching part of Jialing's aura, Noah felt a faint sense of danger. This proved that the gift, even if Noah faced it, was a little threatening. Compared to Jialing, the one-eyed man made Noah feel a sense of doubt. There was no doubt that the one-eyed man was the Flood Dragon King, ranked 3rd among the 7 heaven sages, Flood Dragon Lu. It was said that Demon King Jiao was the child of the Dragon King of the Eastern Sea and his concubine. He had inherited the Yellow Dragon's bloodline and possessed great talent. However, he wasn't recognized because he was the son of a concubine. In order to prove himself, Jiao Lu entered the underwater volcano and cultivated for 1,000 years. After accumulating his cultivation, he finally obtained the spirit of an immortal dragon that was comparable to the sea god and Mother Earth. Demon King Jiao, who was ranked 3rd among the 7 heavens great sages, was the strongest other than the great sage equal to heaven, Sun Wukong, and the great sage who pacifies heaven, Bull Demon King. In other words, he was even more powerful than Jialing, who had inherited the bloodline of the strongest species and was granted the highest rank of gods and dragons. In fact, Noah could feel that the other party had an extremely powerful aura. However, for some reason, not only was that aura not as intimidating as the rock demon King Jialing, it instead had a kind of decadent feeling. It was that feeling that made Noah frown imperceptibly. Not only Noah, but 16th Knights also seemed to feel something. He frowned and stared at Jiao Lu. "You're the great sage who covers the ocean, Demon King Jiao, who ranks 3rd among the 7 great demon kings, right?" 16th Knight's tone had already surpassed the level of asking and questioning. It was close to interrogating. "Mr. 16 Knights?" Sarah and Shadora both exclaimed in surprise. Instead, Demon King Jiao, the great sage who covers the ocean, hurriedly stepped forward like a peacemaker. "Well, don't mind it, don't mind it. It's not worth it to hurt your friendship over someone like me." When Jiao Lu said this, he used a strange accent that was no different from a Guanxi accent. Moreover, there was a faint hint of mockery in his words. It wasn't mockery directed at others but at himself. Even Jialing frowned and stared at Jiao Lu when he sensed the self-mockery. "Do you have to maintain such a disappointing appearance in front of others?" Second brother. Being stared at by his ridiculously beautiful adopted sister with angry eyes, Jiao Lu immediately let out a dry laugh and looked like he had a headache. Obviously, Jiao Lu had been stabbed by his sworn sister's words many times. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Who would have thought that the famous great sage who covers the ocean, Demon King Jiao, would have such a dispirited appearance? No one would have thought that he could cause trouble in the heaven realm and was second only to Sun Wukong and the Bull Demon King among the 7 great demon kings. Even if these factors were not taken into account, Jiao Lu was a 4-digit expert. With Jiao Lu's strength, which was second only to Sun Wukong and the Bull Demon King, it was estimated that he was almost at the top among the 4-digit experts, right? Even Letitia, Pest, and Faith Reese might not be a match for such an existence. Therefore, that dispirited appearance without any domineering aura, not to mention Jialing, who was his adopted sister, even Noah and the others couldn't stand it. "What should I say?" 16th Knight said bluntly. "You're a little different from what I imagined." "Is that so?" Jiao Lu didn't waver at all and revealed a suspicious smile. "Then, what do you think?" How should I put it? 16th Knight's expression looked a little bored. I'm a little disappointed. Just a little. Jiao Lu couldn't help but laugh bitterly. That's the greatest praise for me. Sure enough, this 4-digit Demon King's words revealed a hint of self-mockery. His disappointing appearance caused many people present to look at each other in dismay. The atmosphere suddenly became incomparably oppressive. Sensing the incomparably oppressive atmosphere, Black Rabbit, who had the spirit of contributing to others deep in her bones, was anxious. Just as she wanted to jump out to mediate the atmosphere, a sharp gaze stared at her. In that sharp gaze, there was even a bit of killing intent. Thus, Black Rabbit's figure froze there. Her neck stiffened as she turned her head and looked in the direction of the gaze. She saw that Jia Ling was using a pair of burning eyes to stare at Black Rabbit. More or less, a scorching aura leaked out from his body. That aura awakened everyone present. Jiao Lu seemed to understand something all of a sudden, and a terrible expression appeared on his face. In the next second, Jiao Ling stared at Black Rabbit and spoke in disdain. So, there are still Buddhist beasts here? As soon as he spoke, it was an insult. Black Rabbit's neck shrunk slightly as tears of grievance appeared in her eyes. And as if to protect Black Rabbit, Fei Niao and Yao stepped forward at the same time and blocked in front of Black Rabbit. I heard that you're also a 4-digit Demon King, right? Fei Niao glared at Jia Ling. The famous Demon King turns out to be this kind of person who doesn't keep his mouth shut? Compared to my side, your side has surprised me even more, Jia Ling said with a tone that was both surprised and cold. 2 little human girls actually want to protect the toy of Sakura of Buddhism. Hearing the unconcealable disgust in Jia Ling's mouth, Yao tilted his head and asked. Do you hate Buddhists? Hate? Jia Ling smiled sweetly. That smile was so beautiful that it was suffocating. However, the coldness in the smile was enough to pierce one's bone marrow. Under such circumstances, Jia Ling opened her mouth. I can't wait to kill all the Buddhists, don't you think I hate them? The killing intent and hatred in her tone made Fei Niao and Yao's expression stiffen. However, that was understandable. Once upon a time, the great sage of 7 heavens, who had reached the 3 digits, not only had a great enmity with the Buddhists, even the great sage equal to heaven, Sun Wukong, had been suppressed by the Buddhists. The entire alliance had been defeated by the Buddhists. The Bull Demon King's son, Red Boy, was also poached by the Buddhist sect. 2 of Jiao Lu's and Jia Ling's sworn brothers were also sent to hell by the Buddhist sect. All these grudges caused the Demon King of the 7 heavens great sage to hate the Buddhists to the bone. Jiao Lu was fine, at least he wouldn't make trouble for Black Rabbit, who was just a relative. However, Jia Ling's eyes really couldn't tolerate half a grain of sand. Looking at the Black Rabbit, no matter how he looked at it, it was not pleasing to the eye. Chapter 1594. After all, Indra was a Buddhist protector. As for you two, she was Indra's subordinate. Naturally, if one were to look into the sect, Black Rabbit could also be considered a Buddhist protector. To Jia Ling, who hated the Buddhist protectors to the bone, Black Rabbit was undoubtedly an existence that he disliked the most. Although he did not directly attack Black Rabbit, Jia Ling's gaze of disdain and disgust toward Black Rabbit was more hurtful than any attack. Not to mention Black Rabbit, even Fei Niao and Yao were unable to continue watching. Their gazes toward Jia Ling were already filled with hostility. Clearly sensing the hostility from the two, Jia Ling turned his gaze toward the 2 of them. His beautiful face was filled with coldness. Even if you two truly wish to stand up for the toys of the Buddhist protectors, you should first consider your own capabilities. After saying those words, a dazzling golden flame began to burn behind the great golden-winged Peng Princess. The flame immediately released an astonishing amount of heat, causing everyone's line of sight to become distorted. Chi! Immediately, the ground Jia Ling was standing on began to melt like butter. Everyone felt that the temperature in the air had suddenly risen to a terrifying degree. Their bodies were instantly roasted to the point that they were sweating profusely. Fei Niao and Yao, who were facing Jia Ling directly, had their bodies stiffened. Cold sweat was dripping down their faces. The two young girls were targeted by the hostility of a demon king in the 4 digits. They were unable to move in the slightest. It was the highest level flame that was known to possess exceptional power against gods and dragons. Even if Aziz Dakaha, the demon king, were to face the flames head-on, he would have to use another cosmology to nullify them, right? Jia Ling, who possessed this flame, possessed the strongest firepower among the 7 great demon kings. This was most definitely not just for show. With just Fei Niao and Yao, it was simply impossible for them to deal with such terrifying power. Immediately, Letitia and Pest stepped forward and stood before Fei Niao and Yao. Immediately afterward, 16th Knights also took a step forward and stood before everyone. His gaze was firmly fixed on Jia Ling. He opened his mouth and laughed. "You want to fight? How about you count me in?" Jia Ling's beautiful face became more and more ice-cold. However, this rock demon king no longer spoke arrogant words. After all, unlike Fei Niao and Yao, regardless of whether it was Letitia, Pest, or the 16th Knights, they all possessed the power to threaten Jia Ling. Furthermore, from the very beginning, Jia Ling had always felt a faintly discernible aura locking onto her. If Letitia, Pest, and 16th Knights were only a slight threat to Jia Ling, then the aura that had locked onto Jia Ling caused Jia Ling to feel a trace of danger. Jia Ling's demigod intuition told him. Only the owner of that aura could not be made an enemy of. Resisting the urge to look in the direction of the aura, Jia Ling bit his lips and slowly retracted his flames, causing the temperature in the air to drop. However, Jia Ling did not admit defeat. Buddhists are really good at winning over people's hearts. They can get people to stand up for them at any time. This is the only thing that has never changed. You. Fei Niao was furious. Just as he was about to say something, he was stopped by Black Rabbit. "Forget it, Miss Fei Niao," Black Rabbit shook his head. After all, Lord Jia Ling's sworn brothers were defeated by the Buddhists. If it was Black Rabbit would also be angry. "I can understand Lord Jia Ling, so, you're just going to let them say whatever they want?" Fei Niao seemed to be very unconvinced. "If you really hate the Buddhists that much, then go find those people who killed your brothers and sisters to take revenge. You're just venting your anger by making things difficult for you too, who is only a relative of Sakura, right?" "That's right," Lian Yao felt indignant for Black Rabbit. "This is called bullying the weak and fearing the strong." "What did you say?" Anger appeared in Jia Ling's eyes. Seeing that the situation was gradually getting out of hand from an argument, Sarah and Shadora grew anxious. All right, stop arguing." Jiao Lu scratched his head as if he couldn't stand it anymore and said to Jia Ling, "They're right. We shouldn't vent our grudges against the Buddhists on a relative of Sakura. Wouldn't that make us appear too petty?" Jia Ling snorted and turned his head away as if he didn't hear Jiao Lu's words at all. However, he didn't say anything else. Sarah and Shadora finally let out a sigh of relief. No matter what, Jiao Lu and Jia Ling were invited by these two rulers of the social class. If they left on bad terms with no name, it wouldn't be a good thing for the upcoming battle where they needed to fight together. "Sorry, my sworn sister is like this. Please forgive her," Jiao Lu used a playful attitude to ease the atmosphere and said to Noah. "It's the same for the little brother over there. Even if she's a direct descendant of the giant golden-winged Peng, she has no chance of winning against you, who has sovereignty over all 24 suns and another cosmology that can seal millions of gods. I will restrain her, so don't use your aura to lock onto little Jialing, okay? Second brother, don't call me little Jialing." Jialing subconsciously retorted. Then, he realized what Jiao Lu said and looked at Noah in surprise. "You're the human who has gathered all 24 suns, has another cosmology that can seal millions of gods, is recognized by the White Knight King and Halloween Queen, and even forced Azi Dakaha into a desperate situation?" Noah glanced at Jiao Ling and then looked at Jiao Lu. "I don't think I'm as famous as you guys." "You don't mean what you say." Jiao Lu laughed, and his voice once again carried a trace of self-mockery. We brothers and sisters are just defeated by the Buddhists, but you sealed millions of gods, including the Buddhists, and made the gods and Buddhas of the entire heaven realm fear you and have no choice but to give up the existence of sovereignty over the sun. Compared to you, we can't even protect our elder sister and flaunt our illusory glory. This time, Jiao Lu's words made everyone present understand. There was an unhealable scar in this demon king's heart. It was a scar that was etched in his heart because he couldn't protect the important things in the past and let them be taken away. And that important thing was probably the great sage, heaven's equal, Sun Wukong. Noah narrowed his eyes and looked directly at Jiao Lu. You became like this because the great sage, heaven's equal, converted to Buddhism, right? Jiao Lu, who didn't expect Noah to say it directly, raised his eyes, then looked away and said perfunctorily. Well, it doesn't matter what happened in the past. Second brother, you. Jiao Ling looked at Jiao Lu with disappointment, but there was nothing he could do. Noah, on the other hand, faintly felt a little angry. Then, Noah said to Jiao Lu. Are you really the brother of the great sage, heaven's equal? This sentence caused the atmosphere to change abruptly again. The perfunctory smile on Jiao Lu's face disappeared little by little, and a fierce look appeared in his eyes as he stared at Noah. What do you mean by that? It's just the literal meaning. Noah stared at Jiao Lu intently as if he was trying to see through his mind. I really can't imagine that you are the sworn brother of the great sage, heaven's equal. I'd like to hear it. Jiao Lu seemed to be unable to bear it and said. How can you deny my relationship with my elder sister? Do you need evidence for this kind of evaluation? Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When I faced the great sage, heaven's equal, I could feel the burning righteousness in his heart. But when I faced you, I didn't feel any hope. You were like a dead tree drifting with the waves. How could I link you to the great sage, heaven's equal? When these words came out of Noah's mouth, Jiao Lu suddenly raised his head, and his eyes shone with unprecedented brilliance. Even his expression revealed some excitement. Have you seen Sister Monkey King? Not only Jiao Lu, but even Jiao Ling was a little excited. Have you seen Sister? Where did you see her? At this moment, both Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling showed uncontrollable excitement. Chapter 1595. Everyone was surprised by Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling's agitation, but they also understood why. After all, the great sage, heaven's equal, and his sworn brothers had gone through life and death together. In terms of time, ever since the great sage, heaven's equal, had converted to Buddhism, his sworn brothers had never seen him again. No matter what, the territories with more than 3 digits belonged to the various god groups. In the past, the demon kings of the great sage of 7 heavens, who were enemies of many god groups, could not possibly reach the 3 digits. Similarly, existences with more than 3 digits could not casually descend to the lower realm. Naturally, after converting to Buddhism and rising to the 3 digits, the great sage equaling heaven no longer had the chance to descend to the lower realm. In this way, how could these sworn brothers and sisters who were deeply in love with each other meet? If there were no accidents, the great sage, heaven's equal, and his brothers and sisters would probably never see each other again. It was precisely because he understood this point that Jiao Lu became so dispirited. The great sage, heaven's equal, also did not dare to meet these brothers and sisters. He was afraid that once he saw them, he would not bear to return to the heaven realm anymore. Of course, Noah actually knew this. Of course, reluctance was one of the reasons. However, the bigger reason was that she was worried that her appearance would cause unnecessary trouble for the great sage equaling heaven's brothers and sisters. Although the great sage equaling heaven had converted to Buddhism, she was definitely an existence that was not welcomed by the god groups. This young girl who had once caused chaos in the heaven realm had formed enmity with many gods. Furthermore, when she was still a half-star spirit, the great sage equaling heaven had the ability to challenge so many god groups. Only when the Sakyamuni personally appeared was she suppressed. If the great sage equaling heaven suddenly awakened and became a complete star spirit, the threat would definitely be greater. The gods in the heaven realm could not ignore the threat of the great sage equaling heaven. Even if the great sage equaling heaven had converted to Buddhism, there were still many who were worried that she would raise her flag again and lead an army to attack the heaven realm. Therefore, the great sage, heaven's equal status in the heaven realm was actually very awkward. He was not liked, and he was not trusted. When he was promoted to 3 digits, rather than being recognized, it was better to say that he was watched. Under such circumstances, if the great sage, heaven's equal, were to meet with her sworn brothers and sisters who had once attacked the heaven realm, it would definitely make some people more worried that this half-star spirit girl would once again attack the heaven realm. In that case, the group of cowardly gods would definitely use this as an excuse to do something to Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling. In order to prevent such a thing from happening, the great sage, heaven's equal, suppressed the longing in his heart and hardened his heart to return to the heaven realm. It was because of this that Noah thought that the great sage equaling heaven in this world was a gentle person. From the expressions of great sage, Jiao Lu, and Jiao Ling, Noah could clearly see the deep relationship between them that no one could replace. How could Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling not be excited when they heard about the whereabouts of the great sage equaling heaven? However, it was precisely because of this that Noah felt a little angry. I did meet the great sage, heaven's equal. Noah looked at Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling. I won't hide it from you. The great sage, heaven's equal, is probably in a very bad situation now. What? Jiao Lu's expression changed. Big sister's situation is very bad? What's going on? Jiao Ling took a step forward and shouted anxiously. Could it be that those guys from the Buddhist sect did something to Big Sister? I don't know if those guys from the Buddhist sect did anything to the great sage, heaven's equal. Noah shook his head. It's just that because the great sage, heaven's equal, pretended to obey, those guys above definitely didn't treat her well, right? Pretended to obey? Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling frowned. You also know that the gods of the heaven realm brazenly snatched the sovereignty of the sun from me, right? Noah said. However, at the beginning, more than half of the sovereignty of the sun was in the hands of the white yiksha. In order to obtain the sovereignty of the sun, the great sage, heaven's equal, was sent by the Buddhist sect as a lobbyist. Hearing this, Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling's expressions became complicated. So, Sister Monkey King came to the lower realm before. Those bastards from the Buddhist sect actually sent Big Sister like this. Even if I don't say what happened after that, you can guess it, right? Noah said. In order to prevent the gods from affecting Azidakaha's seal, the white yiksha entrusted the sovereignty of the sun to me and asked me to protect the lower realm. For this, I even fought with the great sage, heaven's equal. You can say that we didn't know each other until we fought. Then what do you mean by agreeing in public but opposing in private? Jiao Lu asked subconsciously, but he immediately reacted. Could it be that, Big Sister? Looks like you've already thought of it. Noah glanced at Jiao Lu. The reason why the white yiksha entrusted the sovereignty of the sun to me was because if the sovereignty of the sun fell into the hands of the gods, the consequences would be unimaginable. Your Big Sister had no intention of obtaining the sovereignty of the sun for the gods of the heaven realm. This is not in line with her righteousness. So, the great sage, heaven's equal, only fought with me symbolically and then returned to the heaven realm. Those gods and Buddhas in the heaven realm must be very dissatisfied with the result that she didn't complete the task, right? Noah said sarcastically. Those greedy and cowardly fellows originally saw the great sage, heaven's equal, as a threat. This time, they were sent to the lower realm and couldn't even obtain the sovereignty of the sun from a human. I think many people with ulterior motives can't wait to make things difficult for the great sage, heaven's equal. What do you think? This way, the situation of the half-star spirit is good. His words made Jia Ling speak in anger. Those defeated people also want to make trouble for Big Sister? On the contrary, Jiao Lu calmed down. But that's a matter of the past. Now, you've sealed more than 1,000,000 gods. Those fellows no longer have an excuse to make trouble for Big Sister Monkey King, who could escape from you alone, right? Perhaps. Noah looked at Jiao Lu. However, what I want to say is that the great sage, Heaven's equal knew that things would turn out like this, but he still didn't intend to take the sovereignty of the sun from me and directly return to the heaven realm to face the difficulties. In a situation where he knew that things would turn out like this, do you know what the great sage, Heaven's equal, said to me before he left? Noah's gaze pierced Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling. She told me this: if you can break through the trial of the gods of the heavenly realm and face Az Dakaha, then try to find my sworn brothers and sisters. Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling's expressions instantly froze. After that, the great sage, Heaven's equal, left directly. He didn't leave behind any keepsake, nor did he give me anything to prove my identity or ask for your help. He only asked me to look for you. What does this mean? Noah said word by word. This means that the great sage, Heaven's equal, believes that even if you are separated, your hearts are still connected. The righteousness in your hearts has never changed. As long as Az Dakaha wants to bring disaster to Hakata, she, the great sage, Heaven's equal, and you brothers and sisters will not be able to stand by. You will definitely choose to stand out and fight the Demon King with me. There is no need for tokens or proof. But look at you now. Noah laughed coldly. One of you was blinded by personal grudges and spoke ill of an innocent comrade who would have to entrust their lives to each other and even plan to fight. The other one is even better. His heart has already died long ago. Fighting the Demon King is simply perfunctory. Are you worthy of the great sage, Heaven's equal's trust in you? Are you worthy of her trust in you as her brothers and sisters? Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling's expressions changed abruptly, but they couldn't say anything else. They lowered their heads and looked guilty and remorseful. The onlookers fell silent and didn't know what to say either. Not long after, Jiao Lu took a deep breath and squeezed out a voice. What else did Big Sister say? Noah looked at Jiao Lu. After a while, he threw out these words. She said that she couldn't come to see you, or she wouldn't bear to leave. After that, Noah turned around and returned to the minister's seat, leaving Jiao Lu speechless. Chapter 1596. In the end, the 2 days of meeting with the Seven Heavens great sage ended in an unhappy manner. After that, in order to avoid suspicion, No Name, who had a conflict with the great sage of the ocean-covered Jiao Demon King and the great sage of the chaotic heavens Rock Demon King, did not continue to talk with Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling. Instead, they directly returned to the base and let Sarah and Shadora receive the 2 Demon Kings. That was why the members of No Nane didn't know what Sarah and Shadora talked about with the 2 Demon Kings after that. However, if there were any important decisions, sooner or later, Sarah and Shadora would have to inform No Name, right? Although it was just a lowest-level community without a name or a flag, there was no doubt that this community had become the main force against Az Dakaha. With Letitia, Pest, and 16th Knight, who all had 4-digit combat strength, as well as Noah, who was their greatest trump card, no one would dare to underestimate him even if he was just a No Name, who didn't even have a name or flag. Everyone knew that. In the duel with Aziz Dakaha, this No Name would be the key. For that reason, Sarah and Shadora were sure to tell No Name if there were any major decisions to be made regarding Az Dakaha. As long as they knew this clearly, it was not a big deal for Sarah and Sandora to be in charge of receiving Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling. Just like that, the vampire castle once again welcomed night. In the room, Noah and Athena were talking about using the sun's sovereignty to draw out the possibility. As expected, the sun's sovereignty cannot draw out the possibility in your body. It is not that the method is wrong, but even if all the sun's sovereignty's power is added together, it is still not enough, Athena said with assurance. No matter what kind of experiment it is, if there is not enough power, then nothing can be done. Instead of thinking about the method, we should think about how to increase the power of the sun's sovereignty. Increase the power of the sun's sovereignty? Noah could not help but feel distressed. But I already have all 24 sun's sovereignty. The remaining Ophiuchus sovereignty is specially made and cannot be used at all. Even if you can use it, I do not think that at this stage, adding another sun's sovereignty will be enough. Your potential is too ridiculous. If you want to turn all of them into power, I do not know if 24 suns' sovereignty will be enough, Athena suggested. So, I've thought about it. Since the power of the sun's sovereignty is not enough, perhaps we can start with the sovereignty of other planets. The sovereignty of other planets? Noah was stunned. Not just the sun. In this world, all the stars in the universe have sovereignty, right? Athena reminded him. If the sun's power is not enough, then we can borrow power from the other stars. For example, Luoza's sovereignty, the demon lord of Argel, and the other stars of the other stars also stars had their own stars. Athena was aiming for the sovereignty of the other planets. But the stars of the other stars should not be as special as the sun's sovereignty, right? Noah was not optimistic about this idea. The sun's sovereignty has endless uses, which is why it needs to be divided into 24 parts. However, the stars of the other stars are not as special as the sun's sovereignty. Most of them can only be used to summon the star spirits and star beasts of the corresponding stars. Can they really be used to develop potential? Perhaps the stars of the other stars are not as useful as the sun's sovereignty, but they are valuable in terms of quantity, Athena said. If we obtain the stars of the other stars, together with my wisdom, we may be able to develop a similar use for drawing out possibilities. But I do not know how many stars of the other stars will be needed to achieve this. Noah sighed. In addition, there is the possibility of failure. The path we are walking is extremely difficult. However, if you are able to successfully reach the end, then my fated person, you will become an existence that no one can rival. Athena seemed to be delighted by the challenge of this matter. She looked at Noah with a flirtatious look in her eyes. I have nurtured countless excellent warriors, but I have never met such an incredible seedling like you. If I can nurture you into a supreme existence that no one can rival in countless worlds, then I will have completed a legend that even the gods could not complete. It is undeniable that I am looking forward to it. Athena's words made Noah laugh involuntarily. It was indeed very similar to the idea of the former queen of the gods. Unfortunately, Noah still felt that Athena's grand wish was unrealistic. To be able to gather all 24 stars of the sun's sovereignty, it was completely a coincidence and a joke of fate. As the saying goes, an unintentional willow grows. Noah did not have the idea of getting the sun's sovereignty at first, but he got the sun's sovereignty one after another. It was not until recently that he got the opportunity to gather the sun's sovereignty by relying on the self-destruction of the gods. If he did not have millions of gods as hostages, how could it be so easy to find 2 sun sovereigns from the gods and 6 sun sovereigns from the Queen of Halloween? Even the sun's sovereignty had to go through so many twists and turns before he could get it. How could it be so easy to get the sun's sovereignty of the other stars? Admittedly, obtaining the sovereignty of the other stars was definitely not as difficult as obtaining the sovereignty of the sun, but if he wanted to gather the sovereignty that could draw out the huge possibility of Noah's body, he didn't know how many sovereigns he had to find to be useful. Moreover, it would definitely take a lot of time to execute, and Noah could not stay in this world forever. Therefore, Athena's idea was not bad, but it was a little unrealistic. At least, Noah did not want to adopt this plan. Knock, knock, knock. Just as Noah was about to explain to Athena, there was a knock on the door. Hearing the knock, Noah and Athena turned their heads at the same time and looked in the direction of the door. Athena left him with a message. You and I will discuss this matter later. After saying that, Athena's body shone with platinum light and turned into a small platinum sword. She landed on the bed next to the silver sword and quietly stayed there. Only then did Noah speak. Come in. Not long after he finished speaking, the door to the room was pushed open. The people who came in were somewhat out of Noah's expectations. It was Jiao Lu and Jiaoling. Therefore, Noah spoke in surprise. Why are you here? Are you surprised? Jiao Lu smiled helplessly. We just wanted to have a chat with you. That's why we asked little Sarah and little Sandora about No Name's base and the location of your room. It's not good to come uninvited, but we are not so rude that we don't know anything. Jiaoling raised a bottle of wine in her hand. Her cold and beautiful face was much gentler than it was during the day. You wouldn't reject a guest who brought wine, right? Maybe other people are like that, but I don't have any obsession with wine. Of course, I don't hate it either. Noah spread out his hands. Anyway, take a seat first. Jiao Lu and Jiaoling looked at each other and then looked at Noah at the same time. What a surprise. Jiaoling said straightforwardly. I thought that after the unpleasantness during the day, you would dislike us. It's not that I dislike you. After all, what I said was a little too much. Noah smiled bitterly. I'm really sorry. I don't know why I was so angry at that time, so my tone was a little too harsh. I hope you can forgive me. Jiao Lu and Jiaoling both smiled when they heard this. You didn't do anything wrong. It's our fault. Jiao Lu sighed. We only feel grateful and apologetic towards you, who failed to live up to our expectations. It's a little too late to say this now. Jiaoling raised the wine bottle in her hand. So, as an apology, at least let me pour you a cup. After that, the two monster kings sat down. Chapter 1597. On the round table, 3 wine glasses were placed on top of it at an unknown time. Noah, Jiao Lu, and Jiaoling sat in a triangle and chatted about some unimportant topics. Jiaoling seemed to be serving Noah and poured wine into Noah's cup. Noah raised his cup and took a sip. Then, he raised his eyebrows. What's wrong? Jiao Lu clearly noticed Noah's behavior and couldn't help asking. Is the wine not to your liking? That's not it. Noah shook his head. The wine is good, but I thought you brought some spicy wine. I didn't expect you to bring some sweet wine. I'm not planning to drink to my heart's content. Sweet wine is enough. Jiaoling continued to pour wine into Noah's cup. If you want to get drunk, it won't be too late to drink until we're done with Aziz Dakaha and have a celebratory feast. Oh. Noah looked at Jiao Lu and Jiaoling, so you're saying that you're prepared to fight alongside us? Since you've said that, if we don't pull ourselves together, we'll be letting down the great sage of the ocean cover. Jiao Lu smiled bitterly and drank his wine. Also, what you said is right. If Big Sis Monkey King said so, she wouldn't ignore the Demon King who threatened Box Court. If we forget Big Sis Monkey King's righteousness, then we would be letting down those comrades who sacrificed themselves for our righteousness. The battle between the 7 heavens and the heaven realm was known as the battle that split the box into 2. In that battle, they believed in the great sage, heaven's equal. They believed that the great sage, heaven's equal, was the king of legends. They fought side by side with the 7 demon kings and attacked the heaven realm. Leading such an army, the great sage of the heaven equal was able to fight against many gods and attack the heaven realm. However, after that battle, the sacrifices were equally terrifying. As the leader, the great sage of the heaven equal was suppressed. 2 out of the 7 heavens were killed. Many Asura gods and Buddhas who believed in the great sage of the heaven equal and the other demon kings died in battle. Too many people had died in that battle. Although we have never regretted it, for those who believe in our justice and fight with us to the death, if we continue to live with such a disappointing appearance, how can I face them? Jiao Lu tasted the wine with some melancholy. I didn't even understand this principle. I've been like a vagrant for who knows how many years. Now that I think about it, I'm really ashamed. To be honest, when I first saw Second Brother, I didn't even believe that he was the man known as the Great Sage of the Ocean Cover. Jiaoling glanced at Jiao Lu. I originally planned to teach Second Brother a lesson if he planned to continue living like that in the future. Then I really escaped a calamity. Jiao Lu laughed involuntarily. Compared to me, ever since the 7 days of war, you and Big Brother Bull Demon King have been very active. At that time, I thought you were going to continue to fight against the gods of the heavenly realm. In truth, we are indeed resisting, Jiaoling corrected him. It's just that no matter if it's the gods or us, we don't want to trigger another war like the past. Yes, Jiao Lu said with a sigh. Too many people died in that battle. Since it was a war, it was impossible for there to be no bloodshed and no injuries. It was even more so for the war with the Taoists, Buddhists, immortals, and the 12 heavenly guardians. The conversion of the great sage of heaven's equal to heaven might be a major reason why Jiao Lu became so dispirited. At the same time, too many people died in that war, causing the demon king to be extremely tired physically and mentally. That was probably the reason why he became so dispirited. Noah didn't know how tragic the war between the heavenly realm and the heavenly realm was. However, just by thinking about it, Noah could imagine how many people died. Undoubtedly, so many people died, but the great sage of heaven's equal was still able to persevere and maintain his righteousness. Even when he was under the watch of the Buddhists, he still didn't give in. Noah couldn't help but praise him. Perhaps I understand why you were willing to follow the half-star spirit and fight against the gods in the heavenly realm. Jiao Lu and Jia Ling couldn't help but show some pride when they heard that. To Jiao Lu and Jia Ling, following the great sage of heaven's equal should be a very honorable thing. I'm also beginning to understand why sister returned to the heavenly realm without worry. Jia Ling looked at Noah and said sincerely. It's because she saw the hope of saving boating from you, that's why she left without worry, right? Yes, Jiao Lu said with absolute certainty. If she didn't trust you, that gentle and kind sister wouldn't have left the lower world without worry and let Dakaha, this disaster, threaten the heavenly realm, right? Just like how the great sage of heaven believed in Jiao Lu and Jia Ling's righteousness, Jiao Lu and Jia Ling also believed in the great sage of heaven's equals righteousness. Since Sister Monkey King chose to believe in you, we will also believe in you. Jiao Lu raised his wine glass and toasted Noah. Let us lend you a hand in the battle against the great demon king. At this moment, Noah sensed a burning flame in Jiao Lu's eyes. It was a flame that bid farewell to the ashes and reignited life. The domineering aura of a demon king once again returned to the chest of this demon king named Jiao Lu. Hence, Noah looked at Jiao Lu quietly and asked slowly. We only met today and our first meeting was so unpleasant. Even so, you still choose to believe in me without reservation? I just believe that our sister doesn't misjudge people. Jiao Lu smiled without wavering. Moreover, right now, I can feel that your heart contains a sense of justice similar to ours. You can't stand to see innocent people suffer. When you need someone to stand up and fight, you will definitely stand up. Jia Ling also raised his wine glass and toasted Noah. Just like what second brother said, you have the same sense of justice as us. Back then, it was for this sense of justice that the 7 of us led many mountain deities and demons to the heaven realm. Jiao Lu raised his head and puffed out his chest as he spoke. Although the end result wasn't good and could even be said to be tragic, we don't want to overturn this sense of justice. Although it is more or less strange for us who have been branded with the Devil King's brand to say these words, Jia Ling smiled sweetly. However, if you want to protect this box, let us walk side by side with you. Hearing Jiao Lu and Jia Ling's heartfelt words, Noah remained silent for a while before he finally smiled. I don't even know if there is justice in my heart, but if I ruin the trust of others, I won't be able to forgive myself. Noah raised his glass and filled it to the brim. I'll leave my back to you, Brother Jiao Lu, Miss Jia Ling, just call me Jiao Lu. Jiao Lu laughed. Although I don't know if my skills have deteriorated, if I can't even protect someone's back, it proves that I'm only at this level. Call me Jia Ling too. Jia Ling also smiled knowingly. I don't know how far I can go against that human in the final trial, but I still want to tell you to leave it to me. The 3 of them clinked their wine glasses on the table. With a ding sound, they downed their wine in one gulp. Immediately after, Jiao Lu said this solemnly. Actually, before we came here, we paid a visit to the White Knight King. The White Knight King said that Dakaha will break out of his seal in the next 2 days. Jia Ling continued Jiao Lu's words. So, we have to make preparations. What's there to prepare? We've already finished everything before you came, Noah said calmly. Now, we can attack at any time. Is that so? Jiao Lu's eyes flashed. Since that's the case, there's no need to continue waiting, right? That's right, Noah said resolutely as he raised his wine cup and allowed Jiao Ling to pour wine into it. Let's set off tomorrow. Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling nodded at the same time. Chapter 1598. The next morning. In front of the throne hall of the Castle of Vampires, in the vast square, many people were gathered in groups, occupying every corner of the square. In the center of these groups, there was a flag flying. The sight of so many flags fluttering in the wind was truly a spectacular sight. At the very front of these many flags, there were 6 flags fluttering in the wind. The ruler of the East District, the flag of the community where White Yiksha was 1,000 eyes. The ruler of the South District, the flag of the community where Sarah was Dragon Horn Griffin Lion. The ruler of the North District, the flag of the community where Shadora was Salamandra. And, as strong reinforcements, although there were only individuals, each of them had 4-digit combat power, the flags of Halloween Queen, the Great Sage of the Ocean Cover, the Dragon Demon King, and the Great Sage of the Chaotic Heavens Rock Demon King. Just like that, the 6 flags stood at the forefront of the many other flags, fluttering in the wind. All the flags present, including these 6 flags, were about to go to the terrible battlefield and fight the most terrible Demon King of the community. At this time, these communities raised their flags one by one, telling the people of the world that they participated in the battle that would determine the future of Hakata. It was believed that after today, the reputation of these communities would be strengthened, surpassing those communities that were under the gods and avoided the battle. And among the communities here, only one did not raise its flag. No Name. As the key and main force of this battle, there was no community that could promote its name and boost the morale of the members. If it was in the past, even if No Name participated in this battle and did not raise its flag, no one in Hakata would know that they had sacrificed themselves for this and threw themselves into the battle with the awareness of sacrificing their lives. But now, even if there was no flag that could promote its name, all the communities present, and even everyone in other places in Hakata, knew that No Name had participated in the battle. Because, in this community, there was a person who had already become an existence that everyone knew. With a simulated star map, another cosmology, that was more than 3 digits above the box court, he had sealed millions of gods and held sovereignty over all 24 suns. Today, there was no one who did not know that such a person had become the trump card against Az Dakaha in No Name, which had neither a banner nor a name. Because of this, even without a flag, everyone clearly knew that this community of people was active in the front lines of the war against the oldest Demon King. At a certain moment, everyone present raised their heads and looked at the throne hall in front of them. There, a group of people walked out of the minister's hall with strong and powerful footsteps. Oh, the moment they walked out from the throne hall and saw the neatly arranged flags fluttering in the wind, 16th Knights, Fei Niao, Yao, and Pest simultaneously let out cries of surprise. Obviously, none of them had seen such a spectacular scene before. Only Letitia, Jiao Lu, and Jiao Ling showed a nostalgic and sad expression. It's been a long time since I've seen so many flags flying together. When I see this scene, it reminds me of the past. Yeah. As a member of the old No Name, Letitia had once followed the great alliance of Stratum rulers to conquer the north and south. She had crusaded against countless demon kings and even destroyed and sealed the oldest demon king. At that time, the great alliance of Stratum rulers was also as spectacular as this, right? As for Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling, there was no need to mention them. In the previous 7 days' battle, as the demon kings of the 7 days, Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling had personally led many mountain gods and demons to attack the heaven realm. Therefore, the scene of many flags fluttering in the air was not unfamiliar to Demon King Jiao and Demon King Rock. Not to mention these people, even Sarah and Shadora felt a sense of pride when they saw the flags fluttering in the square. As for Black Rabbit and Run, they showed loneliness and unwillingness. Undoubtedly, it's such an important battle, but we don't have a flag that can inspire us, Black Rabbit said dejectedly. I'm really unwilling. Yeah. Wren was also somewhat dejected. I really want to take back the flag as soon as possible. Hearing Black Rabbit and Wren's words, the expressions on the faces of 16 knights, Flying Bird, Yao, Letitia, and Pest's faces gradually darkened. A feeling of unwillingness arose in their hearts. That was to be expected. Think about it, everyone could raise the flag of their community with their heads held high, but only their community could not participate. What kind of feeling would that be? They would definitely be unwilling, right? Not to mention, people like 16 Knights, Flying Bird, and Yao, who had extremely high self-esteem, would definitely be extremely unwilling. Seeing that everyone more or less revealed a lonely and unwilling expression, Noah said indifferently. There's nothing to feel pity about. Our flag is on Az Dakaha's body. When I take down that lizard, step on his corpse, and take our flag from his body, I will definitely raise our flag in the center of the battlefield and declare victory. Hearing this, the gloomy eyes of No Name's group instantly lit up. All right. 16 Knights laughed out loud. That sounds very cool. Raise our flag in the center of the battlefield? Flying Bird displayed a beautiful smile. That would be great. Yes. Yao nodded repeatedly. That would definitely be very cool. Yes. Even Black Rabbit was excited. It would definitely be super cool. Then don't be awkward. Noah smiled. Right now, we are in front of all the communities in the box court. Even if we don't have a flag, we should still raise our heads and stand with our chests held high. Otherwise, how can we tell others that we will be victorious? The members of No Name all burst into laughter at once. Only then did Noah raise his head and look at the plaza in front of him. Among them, the flag belonging to Will-O-Wisp was flying in a corner. Under the flag, Vera, Aisha, and Jack waved their hands at Noah. However, they did not make a sound. Instead, they followed the solemn atmosphere of the plaza and silently waited for the order to be given. Other than Will-O-Wisp, the other communities also focused their gazes in front of the door of the throne hall, looking at Noah and his group. Under such circumstances, Sarah took a step forward. Next, we will begin the final battle with the Demon King in the triple digits. Sarah took a deep breath. Everyone here has participated in the previous battle against the Demon King. You should all know how much sacrifice we have made in that battle. As soon as she said this, many of the community members' faces were filled with sadness. As if to dispel the sadness, Sarah cried out loud. However, everyone, I want to tell you that it is not that we have no hope of winning. The sacrifice at that time will never happen again because we already have the most powerful trump card. He once sealed millions of gods with his own strength. He gathered all the sovereignty of the sun and achieved an unprecedented feat. He has obtained the trust of the White Knight King and the recognition of Halloween Queen. Even the great sage, Heaven's Equal, has hopes for him. At one point, he had forced Az Dakaha into a corner and pierced through his heart. He was only one step away from victory. Under the leadership of this human hero, we will definitely achieve victory. Sarah raised her hand high. So, comrades, let's shout for our future. As soon as he finished speaking. Oh! Shouts that resounded through the sky shot straight into the clouds. That voice shook the atmosphere and caused everyone's hearts to boil. Thus, the war began. Chapter 1599. It was unknown when it started, but layers of dark clouds began to appear in the sky, blocking the bright sunlight and revealing a stifling aura. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Bayasha raised his head and looked at the sky that revealed a stifling atmosphere. His expression was somewhat uncertain. Has it finally begun? As he said this, Bayasha saw it in the next second. In the sky filled with dark clouds, an ancient castle slowly peeked out from the clouds and continuously descended until it reached a certain level before stopping. Immediately, a large number of black shadows began to rush out from the ancient castle. They were like raindrops falling from the sky, densely sprinkling down. Under Bayasha's gaze, the main body of the black shadows began to appear. It was a sea of people that were not limited by race. Some of them landed on the ground and quickly arranged themselves neatly like an army. Some of them were hovering in the air, riding on fire dragons that looked like winged dragons, looking down at the earth below. Not long after, in front of Bayasha, a grand army filled with a grand aura suddenly took shape. At the very front of the army stood someone Bayasha recognized. "You're here?" "Brat." Noah, who clearly heard White Yiksha's voice, raised his head slightly, met White Yiksha's gaze, and said this. "I've made you wait, Bayasha." With that, Jiao Lu and Jiao Ling, who were standing on either side of Noah, stepped forward and also met Bayasha's gaze. "Long time no see, White Knight King." Jiao Lu had a suspicious smile on his face, but he said straightforwardly. "I never thought that one day, I would actually see you in such a wretched state. It is indeed a good thing to live for so long." The White Knight Demon King who once caused the entire Hakata to complain endlessly, the absolute invincible Demon King who ruled the center of the universe, has now fallen to the point of guarding a seal. Jiao Ling said with a tone that was both mocking and admiring. "It really doesn't seem like your style. Great Sage Fu Hai? Great Sage Hun Tian?" Bayasha was startled at first, but then he was pleasantly surprised. 2 of the 7 days actually came? Although we're here, we're not the main characters today. Jiao Lu rolled his shoulders. Even if it's 7 days, against a monster like the final trial, even if Sister Monkey King came, she would still be helpless, right? That's why we're only here to help, White Knight King. Jiao Ling snorted. The real main force is someone else. Even I would like to say that it is a joke to be able to make 2 demon kings willing to help you, but I know that there is someone who can do it. Bai Yiksha laughed bitterly and turned his gaze towards Noah. "Brat, have you really decided to make a move now? My seal can still be maintained for a few more days. You've already done what you need to do. You've also perfectly accomplished your goal of stalling for time, White Yiksha." Noah smiled leisurely. His tone carried an indescribable pressure. "Leave the rest to me." After saying that, Noah lifted his feet and slowly walked in the direction of White Yiksha. Following Noah's footsteps, a terrifying divine power slowly rose from his body and turned into a flame. Like a flame, it surged in all directions. Rumble, as if in response to that terrifying power, the entire ground began to tremble. Under the trembling ground, a similarly frightening aura rose. It was like a volcanic eruption as it violently charged forward. Crack, at a certain moment, cracks appeared on the ground. In the bottomless underground, an alien was lying in this space that was so dark that not a trace of anything could be seen. The cold ground constantly took away the warmth from its white limbs. This was a very harsh temperature and environment for reptiles. However, for the alien lying here, this temperature and environment was no different from a child's play. Although its appearance was similar to a dragon, Az Dakaha's essence was closer to that of a god or a demon. In addition, as a human's final trial, no matter how harsh the environment was, it was impossible for absolute evil to fall. Therefore, the 3-headed demonic dragon lay in this harsh environment as if it had fallen into hibernation. Originally, as a natural demon king and the evil god of the fire worship sect, Az Dakaha was more inclined to use his great power to ravage everything like a storm rather than meaningless sleep. Subduing stubborn warriors with strength. Breaking through cunning strategists with stratagems. Giving hellish punishment to humans who did not understand fear. Giving unwarranted despair to challengers who overestimated themselves. That was the Demon King. As a Demon King, even in such a situation, he should have used his absolute strength to break free from the chains and return to the surface. He should have wiped out all those fellows who obviously couldn't deal with him, but still tried to use tricks like sealing him, bringing despair and fear to him. However, in the past, Az Dakaha had been sealed many times and was already used to this situation. Therefore, instead of wasting energy to struggle, it was better to slowly accumulate power before the seal was broken. After all, this seal would not last much longer. letting the beings on the ground sing about the meaning of life during this period of time, creating hope that had no future. When they broke out of the seal, they would give them irresistible despair and use violence to crush all hope. That would be a kind of pleasure. When he thought about the despair and fear that people would show when their hope was crushed, the evil god of the fire worship sect could not help but grin, immersing himself in a joy that others could not understand. What was true despair? It was the feeling when one saw their hope being crushed. If it was for the sake of seeing a more flavorful hell, then before that, giving others a little bit of time wasn't something that couldn't be done, right? At this thought, Az Dakaha continued to doze off with a sense of pleasure. However, in the next moment, Aziz Dakaha sensed it. An extremely terrifying power suddenly appeared on the ground. Feeling the terrifying power, the three-headed dragon suddenly opened the eyes on all three of its heads. Az Dakaha was all too familiar with that power. No, it was not right to say that he was familiar with it. To be more precise, it should be said that this power left a deep impression on Az Dakar. Is that so? The three-headed dragon raised its head and looked up, as if it could see someone on the ground. Its red jade-like eyes were filled with ruthlessness and joy. Did you survive? Ever since it became the final trial for humans, the three-headed dragon had become synonymous with despair. To the three-headed dragon, the gods in the heaven realm were just prey. To the three-headed dragon, the people in the underworld were just trash. Only a true human hero could suppress a true demon king. However, it was impossible for a human to defeat a three-digit demon king in a one-on-one battle. Therefore, there was only one thing that humans could do from the beginning to the end. That was to use everything that the human realm could do to challenge the three-headed dragon. In other words, the three-headed dragon did not view any human as an enemy, but the entire human race. However, this idea was shattered 2 months ago. At that time, a mere human had forced the demon king named Az Dakaha, who numbered in the hundreds, into a corner and even killed him once. Az Dakaha still could not forget the power of the god and devil domain that the other party displayed and the blow that pierced through his heart. Only then did Az Dakaha experience the true fear of death. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the final trial for humans, the three-headed dragon revived and ruthlessly pierced through the stomach of the careless human hero. At that time, the three-headed dragon did not feel any sense of accomplishment, only endless regret. It was not easy for an existence that could suppress a demon king to appear in the human world, but he died just like that? The three-headed dragon felt very regretful. However, it seemed that the other party had survived. A human hero. Have you come to challenge me again? At this moment, the three-headed dragon abandoned its previous plan and released a terrifying aura. Then let's try to suppress absolute evil. The dark space began to collapse. Chapter 1600. Crack. 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 The heavy ground was like a block of ice as it began to crack bit by bit, emitting a hair-raising sound. An indescribably terrifying aura filled the entire area. Like an erupting volcano, it constantly surged up from the ground and surged to the surface. Under that terrifying pressure, everyone's expression changed abruptly. Without any hesitation, they began to retreat. This included White Yiksha, who had been sitting cross-legged on the ground at the beginning. He also turned into a ray of light and disappeared on the spot like melting sunlight. In the blink of an eye, only Noah, whose body was burning with astonishing divine power, was left standing on the trembling ground. He seemed to be indomitable as he stood there without moving. Although the entire ground was trembling, only the small area where Noah was did not shake at all. That scene was very unbelievable. As a result, the trembling ground around him frequently cracked, but not a single crack spread to Noah's location. The ground around Noah was instantly covered in cracks like a spider web. It wasn't until a certain moment that the trembling ground suddenly stopped. Boom! In the next moment, the ground that was covered in cracks suddenly exploded, lifting up huge rock fragments. It was as if the ground was collapsing, constantly falling down. As a result, a huge bottomless pit appeared in front of everyone. And in the center of this bottomless pit, there was a piece of ground that looked like a stone pillar that had emerged from the depths of the ground. It was completely intact. Noah, who was standing on top of it, did not look at the bottomless pit around him. He only looked ahead. There, a pure white three-headed dragon, carried by a pair of pitch-black wings, gradually rose from the bottomless pit. It did not stop until it rose to the air in front of Noah. The eyes of the human hero and the natural demon king instantly met, bursting with sparks. Powerful auras surged from Noah and the three-headed dragon, as if colliding with each other. They filled the area, resisting each other as they each occupied half of the sky. Seeing Noah alone exude an aura that was on par with the humans in the final trial, the people riding on the backs of the pterosaurs in the sky felt excited. More than a month ago, when Noah had left this world, the various communities present had also started a duel with Az-Dakaha. At that time, the casualties were quite heavy. 16 Knights, who was one of the main forces, was heavily injured and unconscious. Deaths occurred in the various communities one after another. In the end, at least 70% of the Alliance's forces had been killed or injured. Only less than half of them had survived. As a result, White Yiksha, who felt despair, could only use his authority as a host in an attempt to seal Az-Dakaha. However, Az-Dakaha's short-lived eruption had weakened most of his strength. All he could do was guard a seal that would lose its effectiveness at any moment as he desperately struggled. At that time, it was undoubtedly hell. However, today, there was a human who stood resolutely in front of the three-headed dragon with his own strength. He exuded an aura that was not weaker than the other parties. Looking at the figure that was much smaller than the three-headed dragon's back, everyone felt a sense of indomitable majesty. Their fear of the Demon King was immediately reduced to the lowest point. Under such circumstances, Noah looked straight at the three-headed dragon opposite him, a faint smile appearing in his deep, dark eyes. Should I say, long time no see? Hearing this, the three-headed dragon ignored Noah's sarcastic tone. 3 pairs of red jade-like eyes stared at Noah as he spoke in a deep voice. You seem to be different from before. Is there anything strange about it? Noah said with an indifferent expression. Humans are creatures that constantly change. Some learn from the lessons of the past to grow, while others sink into the failures of the past. I'm also a human, and I can't stay the same. As long as this change isn't a bad thing, so what if I change? In other people's ears, Noah's words were nothing more than pure logic. However, in Az-Dakaha's ears, these words gave off a different feeling. Is that so? The three-headed dragon's voice began to carry a trace of pressure. You have already seen through the essence of humans. Have you seen through the essence of me, a human's final trial? Noah did not directly answer the three-headed dragon's question. Instead, he casually said this. Last time, you told me that you won, but you did not pass the final trial. Saying this, Noah looked at the three-headed dragon with a dazzling light in his eyes. This time, I want to see if you, a human's final trial, can stop me, a human's, steps. Hearing Noah's words, the three-headed dragon's red jade-like eyes flashed with an ominous glint. Its 3 sinister mouths curled up. You want to pass me? A human's hero? The three-headed dragon's spiritual core began to swell. Then show your true value to absolute evil. After saying this, the three-headed dragon raised its 3 heads and let out a resounding roar towards the sky. Gyaa. That was a roar that could shake the heavens and earth. Just like when it had first broken free from the seal in Blazing Flame City, the three-headed dragon let out a terrifying roar towards the sky. The roar caused the atmosphere to shake and waves to surge. It was like the most berserk of attacks that swept in all directions. Wherever the violent shockwaves passed, the ground would once again crack open. Like extremely fragile glass, it shattered and collapsed one after another, falling into a bottomless pit. In the sky, 16th Knight, who was riding on the back of a pterosaur, was speechless. Is it really a monster? Az-Dakaha. White Yiksha, who had appeared on the back of a pterosaur at some point in time, had a change in expression as he loudly shouted. Quickly retreat. Everyone in the Alliance army that was fighting against AZ Dakaha had a shocked expression. Seeing the terrifying shockwave sweeping over, they hurriedly wanted to retreat. However, in the next second, a voice resounded in the berserk waves. Shut up. As soon as the voice fell. Bang! Following a shocking muffled sound, the terrifying roar came to an abrupt end. Whoosh! A black shadow rubbed against the air and flew out from the center of the shockwave set off by the terrifying roar, causing a sharp sound as it broke through the air. It heavily crashed into the only intact stone pillar in the middle of the bottomless pit, smashing it into pieces. Soon after, the black figure was covered by a large amount of rocks and debris as it fell into the bottomless pit. The shockwave that swept through the entire world suddenly stopped. Everyone opened their eyes wide and looked at the three-headed dragon's location. However, the three-headed demonic dragon had already disappeared from that place. In its place was a swaying scarlet dragon shadow, Noah, who was floating in the air. Seeing this scene, everyone understood. The black shadow that had just flown out was the three-headed dragon. The three-headed dragon that had once caused great casualties to the Alliance army that was subjugating the Demon King had suffered a heavy blow from Noah. It stopped roaring and was instantly sent flying. Realizing this, everyone's mouths began to slowly open. Noah just looked down at the bottomless pit below. Deep in his heart, on the outline of the stone plate, two patterns were shining. One was giant. The other was Dragon Emperor. At the same time, he activated two incarnations. The scarlet dragon's shadow on Noah's body began to slowly expand. Whoosh! At this moment, in the bottomless pit, a black shadow cut through the air and rushed over. It waved its sharp claws in Noah's direction. Facing the sharp claws, Noah directly raised his hand and punched out. The sound of the collision resounded through the heavens and the earth. Chapter 1601. Dong! A shockwave rippled out in the air and spread in all directions in a ring shape. It sent the people riding on the pterosaurs flying, causing them to cry out in surprise. In the center of the shockwave, two streams of light flew out and rushed into the sky. They were like thunderbolts chasing after each other, circling and colliding. Dong 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 dong. When the two streams of light collided, there would be a deafening muffled sound in the sky. It was loud enough to pierce one's eardrums, causing the entire sky to tremble. Rings of shockwaves accompanied by the collision of the two streams of light were blasted away one after another, dispersing most of the clouds in the sky. The Alliance army, who couldn't interfere at all, could only stare blankly at the two streams of light that were chasing each other, colliding with each other, entangling with each other, and spinning with each other. What are you still standing there for? Jiao Ling finally snapped out of his daze and spoke with some difficulty. Aren't we going to chase after them? Chase after what? Jiao Lu laughed bitterly. That's a human and a demon king who can rival 1,000,000 gods. In a battle of that level, other than the White Knight King, no one here can intervene, right? Lord White Yiksha. Black Rabbit quickly looked in White Yiksha's direction. Can you help Mr. Noah? No, if I go, I'll only be a hindrance. White Yiksha shook his head without hesitation. I'm a pure star soul. I'm not human and don't have the fire worship sect spiritual lattice. If I go, I'll only be imitated by AZ Dakaha's another cosmology and become stronger. At that time, I might not be able to deal with him. In fact, it was because of this reason that in the previous battle, White Yiksha could only provide support behind the scenes. He let 16th Knight, Letitia, and Fei Si Reese be the main force to challenge AZ Dakaha. Until the Alliance army suffered great casualties and 16th Knight was severely injured, White Yiksha could only go into battle and use his authority as the organizer to seal AZ Dakaha. Therefore, if White Yiksha joined the battle, it would only make the situation worse and would not be of any help. Then what about now? Fei Niao asked unwillingly. Could it be that we can only watch from here? Don't worry, Fei Miao, Yao said softly. We have our mission. That's right, Letitia agreed. Our mission is to annihilate AZ Dakaha's split body. Those clones don't know anything like another cosmology. This is the time for us to show off our skills, Pest advised him. It was rare for Pest to be so kind. As for that Demon King, Master will not lose to him. Everyone could only nod their heads one after another. In the crowd, 16th Knight raised his head and looked at the two streams of light that were colliding with each other in the distant horizon. Terrifying shockwaves were created, and heavy loud noises were heard. Don't lose, bro, dong. After an unknown number of collisions, Noah and the three-headed dragon were sent flying out simultaneously amidst the strong gales from the impact. The atmosphere was stirred up into a mess. Noah's body shook slightly. He instantly scattered the powerful force acting on his body and stabilized his flying body. Soon after, he lifted his head and suddenly looked in front of him. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Almost at the same time, in the clouds in front of him, streaks of pitch-black shadow blades sliced through the air and parted the clouds. Under the sharp sound of the air being torn apart, they shot toward Noah like raindrops in a violent storm. Each shadow blade had the power to cut open the earth. In front of the shadow blades, the so-called steel was as fragile as tofu. Even with LV-6 SSS durability, and the magic of sword protection to weaken physical attacks, if Noah was hit by such a shadow blade, he would only end up being cut in half. Of course, that refers to the situation where there is no defense at all. Now, Noah has the air scale protection of the Dragon Emperor avatar, so it is not impossible for him to block the attack of the shadow blades. Boost, supercharge, boost, supercharge, boost, supercharge, boost, supercharge, boost, supercharge, boost, supercharge. A voice sounded on the crimson dragon shadow that covered Noah's body, causing the crimson aura to soar. At this moment, the defensive power of the air scale was increased by countless times, causing the crimson dragon's shadow to flash with a clear scale pattern. Carrying the soaring crimson dragon shadow, Noah did not retreat but charged forward, shaking the atmosphere like a cannonball, charging forward. Clang 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 clang. The shadow blades that were enough to cut open the earth fell on the crimson dragon's shadow one by one, but in the midst of a crisp sound, they caused bursts of sparks and were bounced off one by one. The next moment, Noah faced forward and suddenly stretched out a hand. Wang! The crimson dragon's shadow on Noah's body suddenly trembled, and along with Noah's action, one of the dragon claws suddenly expanded dozens of times in an instant, turning into a ferocious and terrifying claw. It fiercely stretched out and grabbed a cloud of mist in front of it. Bang! Under the violent force, the cloud of mist exploded like a rubber ball. In the cloud of mist, the three-headed dragon was tightly held in the palm of the huge crimson dragon claw, like a puppet, being tightened little by little. Woo 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 woo. In the ferocious and terrifying dragon claw, the three-headed dragon, who was constantly being tightened and squeezed, let out a painful howl. Poochie poochie poochie. With a series of tearing sounds, the skin of the three-headed dragon, which was constantly being tightened by the ferocious and terrifying dragon claw, began to explode as if unable to bear the burden. Bright red blood sputtered out and splashed into the sky, falling onto the ground like a heavy downpour. In the next second, the bright red blood on the ground, mixed with the soil, wriggled and turned into ferocious two-headed dragons, roaring at the sky. When the army, which was on standby, saw this scene, they were all energized. They're here. Shadora yelled in a delicate voice. Sister Sarah. Got it. Sarah ordered without any hesitation. Everyone. It's time to test us. Let's go. Faith Reese shouted in a low voice. Don't let any of the clones get to His Excellency Noah's side. Yes, sir. A response rang out. Then, the army, which was on standby in mid-air, charged toward the two-headed dragon army. A moment later, they confronted the roaring two-headed dragon army head-on. In the distant horizon, Noah glanced at the situation on the ground. When he saw that the two-headed dragon army was entangled with the Alliance army, not a single one of them had been left behind, his heart more or less relaxed. At this time, the veins on the three-headed dragon's body bulged, as if it was possessed by a deity. It roared fiercely and suddenly opened up the huge dragon claw that was tightly holding its entire body. It rushed out, and the dragon's shadow behind it turned into a huge shadow blade that chopped down. Poochie. This time, the air scales didn't block the shadow blade, and the ferocious and terrifying dragon claw was cut off by the equally huge shadow blade. Then, the huge shadow blade made a turn and drew a perfect arc. It flashed through the air and slashed fiercely in Noah's direction. This time, Noah didn't dare to directly rely on the air scales to block the combined power of the three-headed dragon's shadow, to form the shadow blade. Hastily, he stepped into the air and dodged. Swoosh! The shadow blade that flashed by immediately and fiercely cut through Noah's position, leaving a faint mark in the air. You're quite capable, aren't you? Noah paused and looked at the three-headed dragon with a sharp gaze. Then, let's see how you'll turn danger into safety next time. In the depths of Noah's heart, on the outline of the stone plate that represented the authority of the 10 avatars, besides the giant and dragon emperor, a third image began to flicker. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.